Welcome back to another edition of the Rodcast. Oh, it's a beautiful thing, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get into plenty of Texas football conversation because it's game week. We got college football to discuss, the little appetizer over the weekend. We'll dive into that. The preseason for the Cowboys. We'll dive into their last preseason matchup. We'll talk about Trey Lance and the Trey Lance experiment for the Dallas Cowboys and how that's going. We'll throw in some Texans conversation on the show as well. We'll also dive into some other NFL news, notes, and nuggets. We got your usual favorites on the show, of course. We got Rod's Rant. We'll have the session where we go behind the burnt orange curtain, and then we'll dive deep into game week Colorado State discussion and preview that matchup. We'll also get into your usual favorites. We'll dive into all the facts, what the stats. We'll get into who said that off the record, of course. We got the topic for the big fat poll of the day, your musically themed day of the week. We are loaded on a Monday Fun Day edition of the Rodcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to, first of all, congratulate each and every one of y'all, all right, because we are officially in football season. We made it after a long road. We finally made it to football season, ladies and gentlemen. It is a beautiful thing. Thank the Lord. Thank the football gods. We are here. Football season. It came. I got to tell you, there are some times where it seemed bleak, but we are here. We got an opponent to talk about for Texas football. No dread. Team is expected to be really good. Everybody's high on the Longhorns. So no dread, lots of optimism, lots of positivity. One of the first seasons where we'll embark on a Texas football season where the Longhorn community, unanimity in how good we are going to be. And the SEC better be ready for Texas football. I'm just excited. I'm happy. Congratulations, everybody. All right. It took a while. Thank God for the Olympics and the Dallas Mavs making the finals. That helped us out get through the kind of slow, kind of dead zone of sports talk. That's okay now. We officially in football season. But before we dive into any of the other topics, let me introduce you to the real MVP. He's one of the hardest working members of the ARN family. He's got a hustler spirit, period. Not sure what he's paid, but I'm pretty damn sure this man is underpaid. Ain't no 401k for this hustler, and he's a hustle man of many talents. It's our friend, co-host, and neighbor, y'all. It's Patrick Davis. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing good. It's game week. That means you're doing good. It's game week.
Oh, doing great. I mean, it's just, we actually do have some college football to discuss. And actually, those surprising.
It
was surprising.
You about college football, didn't it?
I was like,
okay. Week 0, we'll just kind of get through the week. And went, all right. Things already happening.
Wow. I got to tell you, if that was just the opener, we are in for a wild, wacky season. If that was just week 0.
We get 5 top 25 teams playing before Saturday.
Yeah.
So there could be more. There could be more before Saturday we even get into. It's gonna be a fun week to get into it.
Oh man!
I hope everybody got all of their chores for the rest of the year done. I hope everybody got you've cleared your schedule for the weekend.
Oh, the adulting you needed to do. Yeah,
rest of the year.
So gonna be a lot of couch surfing for the next couple of months.
You just got it's couch surfing, it's tailgating, it's
tailgating, couch surfing,
some hooting and hollering, some coming out, getting down to DKR and having a good old time. Let me tell you about someone who's going to be having a good time with us. He's my co-host. He's a proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is the new Rod Father of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
I appreciate the intro as always, brother. Yes, we'll get into the week 0, surprising outcomes of those college football matchups. We'll also preview college football, obviously from Texas, Colorado State. We'll preview the college football weekend coming up because, as Patrick mentioned, it's a really damn good one. And we'll dive into some preseason discussions. As a matter of fact, we can start out a little bit talking about the Cowboys and some of the preseason performances we saw from the Dallas Cowboys, most notably Trey Lance and the Trey Lance experiment. We'll talk about that a little bit. But first, let's just get into the Horn headlines. Let's make sure we get educated, updated, and informed on the top stories of the day. Then we'll come back and dive into the Trey Lance experiment for the Cowboys a little bit and start previewing the Texas-Colorado State matchup. But first, Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros get a 6-3 win on Sunday and split their series with the Orioles. Yusei Kikuchi pitched 5 2/3 innings, allowing 3 runs, but the Astros' record with him starting is now 5-0. Alex Bregman and Yanier Diaz hit back-to-back home runs in the 7th to retake the lead. Mauricio Dubon left the game after crashing into the wall on an amazing catch, picking up the 3rd out on the bottom of the 7th, and will be evaluated tomorrow. And now the Astros head to Philadelphia to take on the Phillies, with Roniel Blanco getting the start. And the Rangers dropped their series to the Guardians after starting off the series with a 5-3 win on Friday. Corey Seager picked up 3 RBIs over the weekend, but the 20 runs allowed by the Rangers over the weekend proved too much in the series. The Rangers will now take the day off before facing the White Sox tomorrow. In the NFL, the final week of preseason play wrapped up with the Texans getting a 17-15 win over the Rams, with Cam Akers averaging 7.6 yards per carry, trying to make the final cut, and Deuce Vaughn showed up for the Cowboys in a 26-19 loss to the Chargers with 9 rushes for 53 yards. Trey Lance was able to throw for 323 yards and rush for another 90, but also threw 5 interceptions in the game and fumbled the ball twice, with the Cowboys recovering both. NFL teams now have until tomorrow at 3 p.m. to make their final roster cuts and trim their rosters to 53 players. And college football kicked off this weekend with Georgia Tech upsetting Florida State in Dublin with a 24-21 win on a last-second field goal. SMU picked up a 29-24 win over Nevada after being down 11 going into the 4th quarter in their debut as a Power 4 team. Week 1 of college football now starts on Thursday with 4 top 25 teams on the schedule. And that's your Horn Headlines.
All right. Thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. We'll get to some of the college football discussion because next segment we'll talk Texas, Colorado State, and we go behind the burn orange curtain, start previewing that matchup, and we'll get into the appetizer, if you will, of college football matchups we had over the weekend in week 0. But we got to start with the Cowboys. First of all, Deron Bland has a foot injury that's going to have him out for 6 to 8 weeks, 4 to 8 weeks, a stress fracture, in his foot. So he's going to be out for a while. Kalen Carson, who's a cornerback they got in the 5th round, who's been practicing and showing some promise, he's expected to get some more playing time now. Deron Bland's going to miss the beginning of the season. And so, they can't keep their all-pro corners on the field at the same time. I was talking about just how great the Cowboys cornerback duo is, and they haven't had them on the field at the same time since they become all-pro players. But throwing it out there. Also, Trey Lance. Let's get into this real quick before we dive into some of the other college football discussion. Okay, so it's pretty amazing that Trey Lance in that one preseason game was able to show all NFL fans, and whether you're a Trey Lance hater or you're a Trey Lance apologist, he showed everybody in one kind of encapsulated in one preseason game why the 49ers pretty much risked it all and traded the draft for him, and why they also decided to move on from him and say, no, this guy can't play quarterback for us. He can't play quarterback at a high level for us. He showed it all. I mean, he did. That's in a nutshell. I love the best quote that I saw about the Trey Lance performance came from, I believe it's Bob Sturm. It's a great quote. He says, it's like he can do things most quarterbacks can't do, but can't do things most quarterbacks can do. That is Trey Lance in a nutshell.
Yeah.
It's like he can do things most quarterbacks can't do, which is evident. Which is obvious. I mean, he is an athletic freak of nature. And then it goes, but he can't do things most quarterbacks can do, which is simply reading the field, making accurate throws, ball placement, just, see, field vision is pretty poor, just simple stuff like that. So I will admit, and I don't think anybody knows, I always say choosing a quarterback is like choosing a significant other. The woman you marry or man is not the hottest person you ever dated. But he's that, I would say he's that person that you date. They are a 10. Physically they got it all, but there's a couple of things that are pretty much deal breakers for you. I don't know what it could be. Maybe it's that they have no sense of humor. Maybe that maybe they're a slob. I've dated women that's like, oh man, she's a slob. I can't. Oh, can't have it. She's a borderline kind of hoarder. This is disgusting. I've dated women who have no sense of humor. she was sexy and hot, but no sense of humor. It's like I can't. Hey, my jokes don't land. Her jokes don't land on me. We can't. This ain't gonna work. I've dated some women that just way too needy. I'm needy, so I don't need somebody else who's needy. That's a spiral. Somebody who she can't cook at all, like just won't even try, like just not even interested in trying to cook.
Yeah.
We got to go out every night. Like, man. We can't have that. So I dated a woman once who smoking hot, didn't like animals. Like just didn't like pets or like animals. Period. Just didn't like. I was like, you don't like any animals of any kind. You've never. It's like, you know what? For me, that's kind of a deal breaker.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I dated a hot cat lady. She was already a cat. She had already had like 3 cats, and she was like 26. And I was like, okay, you 26 and you got 3 cats and you single. Then this could go off the rails. I mean, you on the verge of being a crazy cat lady.
Yeah,
I can't do that.
Baseline is 3 cats.
Yeah, that means yes. And you already got
that's our baseline for the rest of our lives. Baseline 3.
You also say I can say even if we get together, you're gonna want more cats.
Yeah,
and I can see we've been a crazy cat couple. I can't have that either. But he's just got some fatal flaws, like just some straight up deal breakers as a quarterback. And I think ultimately, I'm all for unconventional, paths to achievement. And we've seen him at quarterback recently. Geno Smith is an example. Baker Mayfield's another example. Jared Goff. These guys. That's not they didn't take the kind of traditional route. It was kind of a non-traditional route to becoming a starting quarterback or a franchise quarterback. And so Trey Lance could do that. I will give you this stat. I mean, Trey Lance in his career, if you go look at career pass attempts in college, in high school, and in the NFL, he's at 519 career pass attempts. That's not including preseason. This is just in games that matter. We're talking about high school, college, and pro. He's at 519. 13 quarterbacks in the NFL had more than that last season. He has no experience really playing quarterback. So there's an argument to be made that if you can give him more experience and get him more reps, and if you can lower the risk in his game and keep the reward really high in his game, because he's a high reward player, but he's also a high risk player. And if you can kind of lower the risk in his game and keep the reward and teach him to play quarterback, because he's an athlete playing quarterback. That's all. He's not a quarterback. He's an athlete he's an athlete playing the quarterback position right now.
Yeah.
And they have to transition that to him being an actual quarterback. And he hadn't enough reps and pass attempts to actually refine and cultivate his skill set as a QB. That argument can be made. But I guess Jerry Jones has got to figure out, is it worth what is he paying him right now? I think he got a $1 million base salary and a $4.2 million like roster bonus. He's definitely the most expensive third string quarterback in the NFL. I guess I got to go look at all the third string quarterbacks, but top of the mind, I would say, I bet he is. I would bet on it. And what are you going to do with Trey Lance going forward? Like, what's the plan going forward? But that's so you can argue either one. You can say, oh man, he hadn't had enough pass attempts. When you give him enough, reps and enough snaps at QB, you're going to see him start to improve exponentially. It hadn't happened yet though. But I'll admit he's been thrown in some really adverse circumstances, injuries. I don't know. He's really truly a question mark. He is a conundrum. He really is. I can think I can't figure out the trade. I don't figure out whether I want to give up on him or whether I want to kind of invest in him. You saw examples of both in that game.
You did. And I mean, he's a guy that there's a certain amount of, okay, you've had 4 years of practice now, 3-4 years of practice and 3 off seasons that you should have, it made strides at some point. And I get we can say game time. You have to have some game time in there or else you're not really ever. But it's so unrefined that you're like, this is stuff that you need to work out in practice. And then when you come in, if you would have thrown 2 picks and we would have gone, oh, that's just a refinement of the game of you just not reading a safety right or something like that. But when everything is just, I'm going to play like it's practice and there's no defense here. And then, oh no, I've turned the ball over.
Oh no. Yeah.
That's it's just not really man. And at a point where now you have to make, and he is probably the most expensive third string, but you're going to have to make a financial commitment to him down the line if you're any of these teams that want to either, if you're the Cowboys and want to keep him, or if you want to trade for him because he's a free agent at the end of the year. So, unless you think you're going to be able to get him and he's just going to come back and, I mean, if you figure somebody's going to try and bet on this guy next year.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. He's definitely worth it. I mean, for you to pick as a developmental quarterback. I mean, like I said, you brought up some stats. His completion percentage in that game, 67%, 323 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 5 interceptions, pass rating of 52.9. But then you throw in the rushing element, and he had the 46-yard touchdown, and he had 11 rushes for 90 yards and over 8 yards per rush. So it was the best of times and it was the worst of times.
And then he also had 2 fumbles and they got him back, but he fumbled the ball twice too.
Yeah.
So I mean, because you have to throw that in there that even when he's running the ball, he's not reliable in being able to keep your ball that way. Or if he's back at the quarterback position, he's not reliable in keeping the ball. So you just say there was a chance for him to have a 7 turnover game in this.
Nope. You're right. I agree. That's unacceptable. I don't give a damn what your upside is. You got to go. You can't be on the field. You can't play quarterback for me if you got that much risk in your game.
And that's and then that's where the Cowboys will have to get within the next day of, are you going to deplete the defense at a position to keep 4 running backs and 3 quarterbacks? That's a lot. I mean, most teams keep 5 players out of that. You'd be keeping 7. So that's 2 more spots that you would have to worry about. That now you're talking about a defensive line that you're clearly trying to keep several people on that D line to rotate out on your interior D line. You're trying to keep some guys there. You have a linebacker core that's pretty unproven. So you probably want to have a couple of other options in the linebacker core. You have a DB room now with Deron Bland not in it. So you're going to have to rotate some guys in the DB room. Like, that's defense feels like it could use those spots.
I don't disagree with you in terms of roster construction. I will say that they've had more quarterback injuries. Now, you don't expect to have any injury to Dak. Yeah. That would be a horrible scenario. But if you're looking at emergency quarterbacks, but I'm with you. I think you're right. You got to prioritize where you were on the team. You could use that extra roster spot. But right now you're paying for it. I mean, he's your 3rd string quarterback. It's no doubt.
And to be clear, you can get another emergency quarterback. It's not like you don't have to. You can't get another guy on the roster. There's guys like the Dolphins just cut Mike White. Go out and ask Mike White if he wants to come be your emergency quarterback. There's guys that can play football and not turn the ball over and over again.
No, he's not. Right now, he's not even an emergency quarterback. Actually, he's more of he's a developmental quarterback.
Yes.
I mean, like you don't want him in there necessarily in an emergency, because in a crisis, I don't think he's going to respond well in a crisis. He's already a high risk, high reward player. In a crisis, you may lose the reward and be just all risk out there and a downward spiral.
Trey Lance is at most 1 series. And you can say, well, if he turns the ball over, that's fine. And if he maybe he'll make some magic with it. But you're like, I can't have him turn the ball over 3 times. I can't have the emergency of 3 straight possessions and turnovers.
Yeah. And Jerry was asked about it, and Jerry was asked if he, still thought Trey Lance was worth the 4th round pick. And he said, he was still worth it. He said, here's the quote from Jerry Jones. When he was asked about it, he said, for a 4th round pick, are you kidding me? Jones said, laughing, although we did get Dak with our 2nd, 4th pick. So you've got a point there, but we've had some that didn't play in the 4th round too. He said, if I could have drawn this up, I would have hoped to. He said, I think the main thing is the improvement over the last 6 weeks. Very impressive. What you're looking for is the arrow going up, and it's going up dramatically. Really every practice and every game. So I'm going to use that word because he's doing a lot of things that he wasn't doing as well early, and he's doing well now. I think we added it up, and the other day he hadn't had much at about 1,000 plays in his career since about 2015. So, see, there you go. I mean, that's the argument usually that you fall back on with Trey Lance is like, man, he hadn't played any football. He just hadn't played a lot of football, period. He was playing linebacker, I believe, mostly in high school, and then he had that 1 year as a starter at North Dakota State. I mean, he just hadn't played a lot of football. I mean, even plays, snaps, anything. So he played 9 high school games at quarterback, 17 at North Dakota State, and has played in 8 NFL regular season games. He did have 4 starts, and he's only 24 years old, so he's really young. That's the argument.
That is the argument, but the argument also is, well, he's had several years to get that, and no one remotely feels comfortable putting him into a game to get that playing time. So at what point does he become too old to be developmental? And you just go, oh, well, he never got the shot. And you go, well, he never got the shot because he never earned the shot. He couldn't earn it.
No, he never earned it. They saw the 49ers saw the physical tools and said, you know what, we'll risk it all on. It was literally they saw a dime piece and went, man, we're gonna risk it all. Yeah. It was like, have you met her? Do you know this woman? You're gonna risk everything? You're gonna risk your marriage, you're gonna risk your career, you're gonna risk everything you want, your reputation, all for this woman you just saw. It's like when you go into a strip club and you're like, I gotta have her. It's like, bro, no. You gotta go home. We gotta go home. Like, nah, man, I gotta have this woman. It's like, bro, we gotta go home. We got a meeting in the morning, very important meeting. Our business depends on. It's like, nope, I'm staying here. It's like, no, man, what are you doing? And they basically fell in love with the stripper, and they were like, we're going all in. That would have been considered the worst trade, one of the worst trades of all time, draft trades, if not for Brock Purdy. Yeah, kind of cushioning the blowback for the 49ers, so they're still competitive. But guys, that's what they didn't get to know Trey Lance because there's not enough sample size to know him. It wasn't possible to do a thorough evaluation of him as a quarterback. You know what I mean? There was not enough games to do it, and it came back to bite him. So I'm with you. Right now he's not worth the money the Cowboys are paying him, and probably the roster spot, but I'm all for stockpiling quarterbacks. I will say that. And they're just not necessarily in a position to do it.
And I mean, that's kind of the Trey Lance thing is, okay, then send him to a team that he can go play on and then go try and re-sign him in free agency. Like, get him some reps. He's not playing for you.
He's not going to play.
So if he's not playing for you this season and you're paying him all this money and you need the roster spot, you're not putting him into any games, then go let him play somewhere else. Like, go let him, because even if you think at the end of the day, well, maybe he'll be really good and we won't have him. That's what's going to happen at the end of the season when you don't re-sign him because you need to find a quarterback. Either you're paying Dak $60 million, and so then you can't spend $5 million on Trey Lance.
Third string quarterback. Yeah. No, maybe there are no takers either. Maybe you're trying to trade him. Maybe I was like, no, I'm not giving you back whatever they're asking for.
Yeah, well, I'll give you a
seventh round pick for him or something like that.
I think most teams know that any team but the Cowboys would cut him. And not any team, but 20 teams out of the league would cut him because they wouldn't carry a third string developmental quarterback on a team that's trying to win a Super Bowl. But with a 30-year-old quarterback that you're probably going to make the highest paid quarterback, you don't think, well, I need the developmental guy behind him who's also going to be entering into the phase where he's pretty much already, we consider mostly maybe a bust, but maybe not, and maybe there's still hope.
He's one of the most compelling busts of all time.
He is
the lack of playing time and just the lack of experience. But right, he does need to play. Ultimately, the practices ain't going to help him. He needs to get in the game, and ultimately, maybe it's a lost cause. Like, this is all for naught.
What roster would he play on right now?
Oh,
because he's not playing anywhere week 1, so he's not going to play till week 10, and your season's over, right?
Raiders?
Anywhere, but the Raiders are starting Minshew. They're not even starting Aiden O'Connell because Minshew can go play and get him some wins.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if any quarterback position or quarterback group is that inept right now where he would even be an option.
Yeah,
like I don't right now, not this close to the season because teams have all kind of made sure they've tuned that. Even the Steelers, who've got 2 guys who they don't know if either one of them's going to work out, but at least they got 2 that have had quality starts in the NFL.
Yeah.
Not saying so I agree. I don't know what the experiment for the Cowboys. I initially I still like the fact that they were aggressive at the quarterback position because traditionally they've had a very bad organizational habit of addressing quarterback, especially in the draft or obviously via trade, because not a lot of teams trade for quarterbacks, but in the draft they haven't done a good job of it. The last 20 years they drafted the fewest amount of quarterbacks in the NFL, especially since 2000. That would be the case too, and so that's why I like about it. But at this point, I don't know what to.
But that's
what
I'm with you, because I'm with you that I thought it was a really good trade. I thought you needed to go out and you needed to try and get somebody else. You weren't sold on Dak. You didn't want to pay Dak all this money. You still clearly don't want to pay Dak all this money. So you have all that. I get that. You want to go out and get somebody. But when does it turn from that into a Jerry Jones problem of we like our guys? He became our guy. We're just keeping him forever now. We just don't once we like him, we think there's potential. We're just going to keep him at detriment to our team. We're going to keep him. We're going to pay him because we like our guys. And you can see the upside, man. You see him. Oh, man, you see that upside? That's who we got. You just go, Jerry, but you have to move on at certain points. You have to make football decisions. And this, at this point, seems like a football decision that you can say, unless the only reason Trey Lance sees the field for any reason is that Dak and Cooper go down in the same game and Trey Lance has to come on the field. That's the only way he sees the field. Or we trade Dak week 6 and we tank and Trey Lance gets in. Those are the two options, because if Dak goes down, you sign another quarterback to play ahead of him. Well, he's still your third string. If Dak went down, he'd still be your third string. You're not putting him in competitive games.
No.
So if you could say, even if both our quarterbacks get hurt, the following week we would sign 2 other quarterbacks because he's not ready to play in the NFL. Then I can't. It doesn't make sense to keep him on the active roster. And I know it sucks because someone's going to go pick him up, because a team that's bad will say, well, we can go ahead and take a waiver on him because we don't have 3 guys. We don't have an all-pro quarterback in front of him. We don't have those guys. So we can take a flyer and see what we can make out of him, and maybe we'll get playing time if we're tanking at the end of the season. But you're the Cowboy. You're supposed to be playing for a Super Bowl.
No. Yeah, that's also debatable too, considering some of the moves the Cowboys
I agree,
made.
but yes,
this is the window. The window is right now, and they're at the end of the window,
and
you're supposed to be. And all your moves are supposed to, obviously reflect that. All right, no, we'll get to some more Cowboys discussion, because also we still got to talk about contract negotiations, because they still haven't signed CeeDee Lamb. We'll discuss how close they are to that and to signing Dak Prescott as well. But let's get to the break, because we'll go behind the Burners curtain. We'll also get into some of the college football outcomes from over the weekend, but we'll get into Texas versus Colorado. Start previewing that matchup for this weekend. Tell you about the players you need to know. I think the game plan's gonna materialize for Colorado State. I usually try my best to put myself in the opponent's shoes. If I'm playing Texas, how would I attack Texas? I'll give you that breakdown. We'll get into some Texas Colorado State discussion on the other side, right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis, coming back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some Texas football conversation. This week, game week, of course, Texas will kick off their season versus Colorado State. We've talked about this a little bit, but Colorado State, the one thing they lean on, and I think it's more out of necessity than anything else. I think they would like more balance, but their top 20 passing team, at least from last season, top 20 passing team and a bottom 15 rushing team in college football. They're 100 and if you go look at their rushing attack, they're 125th, I believe, overall in rushing yards and rushing yards per game. They're 120th if you look at yards per carry. But if you look at passing yards and passing attempts, they're top 20 in passing yards and passing attempts. So they want to throw the football. And when they get down, they'll be comfortable throwing the football. But I think they're going to come out, honestly, and try to test the Texas secondary. So I think the edge upgrade that Texas has in terms of their edge rushers and their pass rush, you'll get to see it early in this contest, and you'll get to see it a lot in this matchup. And I think it'll have a huge impact in, this particular game because Colorado State's a pass first team. They want to throw the football. Now, it's not always deep passing and vertical shots downfield, so the pass rush won't have a long time to get there. But in terms of just seeing the BGO of the guys, the ball get off, the speed rush now, which will be evident with guys like Trey Moore and a young Colin Simmons, and even, with the guys like Ethan Burke and Barron Cirillo have been here, I think they'll be improved as pass rushers off the edge. So I think, you start looking at this, this particular matchup between Colorado State and Texas. If you're Colorado State and you're coming from having a, bottom of college football rushing attack, 120th, 125th in those metrics, you want to lean on your strengths. And the Texas secondary last year was the biggest liability, arguably, on defense for Texas. And there are a lot of different concepts they struggle to defend. To me, it just adds up. I don't see now. Maybe they could come in here and break tendency, and that would, that's something that happens in big games. I talk about that. I don't know if they can break tendency. I would say the interior of their offensive line, they do have some players who I think potentially could play on Sundays. The center, Jacob Gardner, really good player. The right guard, he was a right tackle, but I believe now he's switching to right guard. 34 starts on his belt. Drew Moss is also a really good player. So the interior of the offensive line, even the left guard, Tanner Marley, multi-year starter for them, who's also switching positions. They have 3 starters returning on the line, and I believe all of those guys are going to be the interior. So they'll have some experience there. But going up against Texas, and maybe this is also, when you're looking at where their strength is on the offensive line, where's the biggest question mark, I believe, on the Texas defensive line. A lot of folks believe, including myself, that you've upgraded talent on the edges, but in the interior D line, you brought in 3 transfers. You brought in Seville, you brought in Bill Norton, and you brought in some guys to help you, solidify, stabilize that interior offensive line. And maybe that's where, if they do want to run the football, that's where you see Colorado State try to penetrate, because that's their strength up against a question mark. I'm not even going to say a weakness of Texas, a question mark for Texas. And I think they're going to test the secondary. I think that's where they start. You usually start a game plan with looking at the opponent's weaknesses and going, all right, how do our strengths line up against their weaknesses? Do we have that matchup? Can we win that matchup? And Colorado State probably believes they can win the matchup between their passing game, or win some of the matchups between their passing game, the Texas pass defense, and their interior run game and their interior line versus Texas interior D line. So if you're looking at Torrey Horton's the guy, right? I always say also look at how many players they have that would be able to play on the Texas roster. Torrey Horton can play for Texas. Most people don't know why he stayed at Colorado State, being still there, because in the transfer portal era, receiver of his ilk usually upgrades to a bigger platform, a bigger stage to play on. But he decided to stay at Colorado State. Last 2 years, over 2,200 receiving yards. Matter of fact, fourth most receiving yards among FBS wide receivers in the last 2 years. Romo Dunze, Malik Neighbors, and Marvin Harrison Jr. are the other three that are ahead of him. Yeah, he's in that kind of category. 96 and 71 receptions, 8 touchdowns in back-to-back years. He's just been an absolute stud the last 2 years. 575 yards after the catch. He's got 575 yards also on throws under 10 yards. So when he's got the ball in his hands as a ball carrier, he can make something happen with it. He actually tied Malik Neighbors based on this Pro Football Focus number for the top speed for any wide receiver in college football last year running routes. Remember Xavier Worthy when he was by Real Analytics clocked at 22.7 miles per hour. It wasn't as a route runner. It was actually on a punt return. They clocked him on. So I think this is as a route runner, and they said his average top speed is nearly 22 miles per hour for Torrey Horton when he's out there running routes. So it's really interesting just how this guy why he stayed at Colorado State and really how he could have elevated his game, because the last couple of years he's been among the most productive and the most impactful wide receivers in the country. 23 forced missed tackles last year. And the one thing I think, or maybe there are two things that I would look at about his game that Texas could capitalize on. He lines up out wide 75% of the time, and he's most of the time on the right side of the formation. Remember I told you about those air raid offenses that they like their players to specialize like on one specific position and really become kind of an expert at that position. There seems to be, and there are some air raid influences in his offense, by the way, because Matt Mumme, the son of Hal Mumme, one of the original creators of the air raid offense, his son is the quarterback's coach and I believe an assistant head coach, and he's kind of works consulting the offense. So that's some air raid-ish qualities to the offense. And Jay Norvell's got air raid background too. So to me, I think that may be one of the remnants. I expect them to move him around this year, especially against Texas. It'd be malpractice. Just leave him out wide against Texas. Leave him out wide to the right side of the formation most of the time. If they do that, man, Texas can easily game plan to take him away. So I expect the Brady break tendency is to move him around this season, starting with Texas. And he also didn't really convert a lot of deep balls. He wasn't a deep threat, considering the speed stat I just gave you about him having an average top speed of nearly 22 miles per hour, which was fourth best in college football. He only was really converted deep threat. 5 of 27. He converted 5 of 27 deep balls. He did have one drop on a deep ball, but they didn't really throw him the deep ball very often, and he didn't catch many of his deep balls. And on film, I think it's more about just him and his quarterback, Braden Fowler Nicolosi. It was his first year as a starter last year, so I expect maybe they have better chemistry now. But he had 1 year as a starter. It was his third spring on campus, so he's getting better. He did have 22 touchdowns, but 16 interceptions. He's got to lower the risk in his game. We talked about that and keep the reward, but Torrey Horton will be the guy they force feed the football to. And their passing game is built on basically what I looked at, the quick slant throws, the quick throws of any kind, getting him the football in space under 10 yards. I expect that to change a little bit, but it makes him I would think it'd make him easier to defend if he's always lined up out wide 75% of the time, most of the time to the right side of the formation, and they don't throw him the football deep. They were 105th in deep ball passing grade by Pro Football Focus. It's not really something they do well. If they add that element, I think they will try with his speed. I would try to evolve his game and evolve the offense to have more verticality. If you look at the other weapons, this is another guy. We talked about this, Armani Winfield. He's a transfer who committed to Baylor. At one point was committed to Sark. I think decommitted from Texas, like actually during a game. I was talking to my man Jerry Hamilton about it. So they got him via the transfer portal, and he's a speed demon, of course, because Sark at one time coveted him for his wide receiving core. So he's a speed demon as well, so that he can go. So to me, they got two, high level wide receivers, guys with really good high upside, and they have some size at wide receiver. I mean, Torrey Horton 6'2", Armani Winfield's probably about 6'2" as well. They got Donovan Ali, who's a transfer from Washington State. I believe he's 6'3". So they got some bigger wide receivers with some size. If they get some one-on-ones, I could see them trying to take Texas downtown a couple of times. And I would do it early. If I was Colorado State, I would do it early. I'll do it early before Texas and try to quiet the crowd. And because you're not going to be able to last with Texas for 4 quarters. What you got to hope is that you can stun Texas, shock them early, and then have Texas kind of on their heels. The deep ball is an easy way to do that. Texas last season versus the deep ball versus, if you look at Power 5 quarterbacks, Power 5 starting quarterbacks, because Texas played some backup quarterbacks last year, Power 5 starting quarterbacks against Texas when throwing passes of 20 yards or more completed over around 40% of their passes versus Texas. As a matter of fact, 7 opponents completed 40% or better on deep passes against Texas. 6 opponents were better than 50% on deep passes. Washington, 6 of 8 on passes 20 yards or more. That was 75%. We all remember that. And it was 7 of 11 on passes 15 yards or more down the field in the spring game. Deep passes, not against all the stars, but a lot of deep passes in the spring game. Were they 5 of 11 on passes 20 yards or more down the field? Big 12 title game, Oklahoma State, 3 of 7 on deep passes. Doesn't include the PI, the none called PI. There was one receiver that was open deep, and the quarterback just missed him. That's something that to watch for. Colorado State may just take their shots and decide, all right, let's see. We can't run the ball anyway. We can try to throw the ball and let that be the extension of the running game. Or when we have man-to-man, we can take our shots. And Texas wants to play a little bit more man-to-man. So that's what I would watch for and be ready for if I was Texas. And Texas, we just talked about their passing game built on the slant. Texas versus slants. Let's look at it. Inside breaking routes. Last season versus Power 5 starting quarterbacks. 9.5 yards per attempt on inside breaking routes. If you look at money downs, defending inside breaking routes on money downs, which slants are. So we're talking about 3rd and 4th down. You're talking about a conversion rate of over 50%. 21% explosive play rate on inside breaking routes. Spring game, inside breaking routes, 9.9 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions on inside breaking routes. In 2022, inside breaking routes, 63% completion percentage, 9.4 yards per attempt, 36 first downs, basically. They struggled with inside breaking routes. They've struggled with slant routes. In 2022, Texas slant routes allowed 65% completion percentage, 6.9 yards per target, first down touchdown rate of over 40%. If they're watching the last 2 years, they're going to run slants. They're going to run inside breaking routes. They're going to throw it deep because they're a top 20 passing team, but they're, like I said, bottom of the barrel, bottom 20 rushing team in the country. And when they run the ball, if they do want to try to run the ball, they're going to run the ball in the interior where they have 3 starters returning in the interior. And a couple of those guys have the ability to play on Sundays, potentially a Jacob Gardner, a Tanner. Jacob Gardner's the center. Tanner Marley's their multi-year starter. He was out at tackle. There's talk now he's going to be a guard, though. And he's supposed to be a really good player. Drew Moss is a right guard for them. He's got 34 starts. I think he's moved around the offensive line too, but from at least what I've gathered in the off season so far, I believe they plan on having all those guys in the interior because they lost a lot of interior guys from last season. So we'll see exactly. But if I'm them, I think that's where I'll attack because that's where Texas has the most uncertainty and question marks is in the interior of their D-line. So your strength versus Texas' weakness, that's where they're going to try to do. Texas needs to be ready for that. And it may not matter because Texas just could, it should just be better. Period. Even if they are attacking you in those ways, Texas should not only be ready for it, but Texas should be better. They have better athletes. They got better, in my opinion. They have more continuity. They should, even if the scheme doesn't necessarily give you an advantage, Texas should have the talent overall advantage. All right, so there you go. Some Colorado State breakdown. We'll get into it a little bit deeper as the week goes on, but that's kind of the surface level breakdown of what I think Colorado State, or how I think Colorado State's going to try to attack Texas. When we come back, we got the topic for the big fat poll today, and we got our musically themed day of the week. We'll dive into that on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis and Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Coming back on the Horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Let's talk about my friend Dr. Greg Eckert and his wonderful team. I owe them a huge debt of gratitude, ladies and gentlemen. I went there initially for a routine checkup, just a cleaning, just to make sure everything was up to speed with my dental health and dental hygiene. And turns out it was not, actually. Everything was not okay, because through their thorough work and all the thorough examination that him and his team did, they found out that my wisdom teeth were growing in sideways, actually, something that usually doesn't happen for somebody after 40. But they wanted to make sure they took care of it, because that was something that could have been a dire, disastrous situation for me. So they went to work. They made sure I was informed and educated about the entire process, got the procedure scheduled, and I was back at work within a couple of days after having everything done. And now my dental health and dental hygiene have never been better, thanks to Dr. Eckert and his team. And I've been back. I've been back for fillings, and I've been back for cleanings. I've been back for a lot of different things, because now I trust them. I trust them with anything. Hopefully for you, it's not as dire as having all of your wisdom teeth removed. Hopefully it's something rather simple, something routine. But if it is something serious, you're in great hands with Dr. Greg Eckert and his team. It doesn't matter if it's general dentistry or teeth whitening, or dentures or porcelain crowns or veneers, dental implants, full mouth reconstruction, even root canal therapy, whatever it takes to ensure you're getting the best quality dental care available. That's what Dr. Eckert and his team are all about. As a matter of fact, first time that I went to Dr. Eckert's office, I actually saw someone who was crying in the office, and I thought to myself, man, this is kind of how I thought dentist office would be. And I was wrong about that, because turns out this young woman was crying tears of joy. She was brought to tears because something else that Dr. Eckert and his team do can give you a brand new smile. She had seen her brand new smile given to her by Dr. Eckert, and she was brought to tears of joy in a dentist office, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, he can do the same for you. He can give you a brand new smile in just one day, permanently secured to your dental implants. No time spent without teeth. You'll get temporary fixtures first until they complete your permanent smile, and you'll smile again with confidence and eat freely without pain or discomfort. We're talking about a lifelike permanent solution. So if you've been told you need dentures, or you already have dentures, or you need all your teeth replaced, just call Dr. Eckert today. Learn about this revolutionary alternative to dentures, a brand new smile in just one day. Give them a call today. It's a complimentary consultation, so you got nothing to lose, but so much to gain, because a confident smile can truly change your life, and Dr. Eckert will change your life for the better. The quality of your smile will affect the quality of your life, and you want to have a great quality of life, and Dr. Eckert can give you that. Give them a call, 512-345-3166. That's 512-345-3166. Or you can visit dreckert.com. That's DRUECKERT.com. And don't forget, also, they have a free Zoom whitening for horn patients. Just found that out from my man, Dr. Eckert, offering free Zoom whitening to all horn patients. You go in there, you tell them you heard it on the horn, boom, get yourself free Zoom whitening as well. See, I told you, Dr. Eckert would always be hooking you up. That's Dr. Eckert, DRUECKERT.com.
Back on the Rodcast on a Monday morning, and that means it's a smooth soul Monday, easing you back into the work week. Got you one more week till we get to college football, so you just got to ease into this, go into work with a good attitude, come on through the week, and then it'll be college football and Texas football on Saturday. So enjoying a smooth soul Monday here on the Horn. Let's get to the big fat poll of the day. Text line is open. 512-447-3776 is the text line number. We'll get this posted up on X at the Horn ATX.
Patrick's big fat poll of the day on the Horn.
Big fat poll of the day today. Let's stick with some Texas football talk. And Rod was just telling you all about what Colorado State's going to be trying to do to Texas to get some scores against the Longhorns and try and put up some points. They had some decent scoring games last season. They were pretty, they never really were getting shut out. They weren't, they were getting in the double digits pretty much. I think every game they were in double digits in scoring, but they did not play a team like Texas last year either. We want to see what this defense can do. This is a good test against a team that wants to throw the ball. So we'll ask you today, how many points will Colorado State score against Texas?
Oh, that's good, because Texas allowed last year right around 20 points per game. I think they were right around a little over 20 points per game. And I expect that to be right. I expect that Texas defense to be somewhat improved. I don't know if that is reflected in their scoring defense. But this is the thing about Colorado State. They don't have a lot of ways to attack you. Now, like I said, I just broke down the most effective ways that they're going to attack you, but I gave you two. It's going to be the connection between Nicolosi, the quarterback, and Torrey Horton, maybe Armani Winfield. I do like their tight ends. I'll get into that a little bit. I kind of like their tight ends, but they haven't done anything. They're unproven commodities. I'm giving you the proven commodities, and proven commodities are that passing game and the connection between Nicolosi and Torrey Horton, top 20 passing game, bottom 20 running attack. And then if you want to look at the interior of the offensive line, I think they have some veteran experience there, and that's a question mark for Texas in terms of the opposing interior D-line. So that's it. But, I mean, that's it, man. And I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball. But I just don't foresee – if they couldn't run the ball, in their conference, I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball against Texas either. I think they're going to have one way to move the football, and that's throwing the football. And Texas should be ready for that with this now newly upgraded pass rush. This is when you unveil the elite pass rush that you have now. And they shouldn't be able to throw the football downfield that much. And they've said Texas has, emphasized open field tackling, and tackling has been a big topic of conversation. We heard that from a couple of the players this offseason, and that's all you have to do against Torrey Horton because he don't throw the ball deep. Everything is kind of under 10 yards inside. So I don't know.
So I'm gonna give you the four options we'll post up on X Rod. We go 0, shutout. We'll give you the other option. Do you think it's a shutout? I don't think it'll be a shutout, but that is an option for you. 1 to 10. So basically a 1 score, maybe 2 field goals, something like that, but under, single digits, basically. Yeah. 1 to 10, 11 to 20.
Yeah.
Or 20 plus.
It's a sweet spot. I think it's 11 to 20. I think maybe they get because they could hold them just to like 10 points, just a field goal and a touchdown. I'm going to say 11 to 20 is probably the safe spot there because the backups will get in. And I don't know if Colorado State will take their guys out. Colorado State will keep. If Texas gets a sizable lead, Texas will put in some. And Sark's already said we're going to play everybody. Everybody going to play.
Yeah,
so
it'll be.
You'll get some, right?
They might pull some guys at a point, or might have to rotate more guys because of what the temperature is going to be, and just because of being able to keep your guys on the field. And there might be a certain point where you're just like, we're getting real diminishing returns, so put some other guys out there. But I don't imagine they're pulling starters necessarily so much as having to go to a wider rotation because of just not being used to playing on that in that temperature.
Yeah. I don't see him waving the white flag early.
No.
I think he wants to see how his guys can play against like basically the barometer, because Texas is supposed to be top 5 team in the country this year. So I think Jay Norvell wants to see really sees a good sample size against Texas, but you're right. They're getting blown out by 30 points.
Yeah.
Something like that. Then I expect Torrey Horton to be out of the game.
Yeah. And I think too, there's a point of, coaches like that. You want to be able to if you can put up 14 points in the fourth quarter, and you can
yes.
say, hey, that's something to grow on. And guys,
Positive,
you saw at the end of that game, forget the fact
fought.
that it was just walk-ons on the field for Texas. Forget that. Forget the fact that Quinn Ewers has already changed into street clothes. Forget that. But we put up 14. We put up the last 14 points in that game. If we had started playing better earlier, we could have beaten them. You know, you had that thing to grow on if you can score late. So I think they will, continue to try and attack. And as you said earlier, they don't have really much of a run game. So there isn't that white flag. We'll just start handing the ball off.
Yeah, milk the clock thing.
Yeah, and let's just take the L and get out of here. You think you have to still throw the ball. So if you're still throwing the ball, you're going to be going for it. And so I think that sweet spot is 11-20. I do think there's a part of me though that believes they'll keep it down. That Texas is going to have that real concerned effort to make a statement in week one, especially PK and Johnny Nansen, and say that this defense is going to be able to come out and play. You're not going to try and show too much, but I think there is something of they're going to try and do that, try and make a statement early on. But I don't know. It'll be the question of, basically it's one big play you allow is the difference between, I think, that 1-10 and that 11-20 is one
That's
big
why I
play.
think they're gonna come out and throw it deep. They're gonna come out and just try to get lucky, PI, something. I think they're gonna come out and you might see, and that would break tendency too. That would go along with in big games, you break tendency. They're not really a team that can connect deep, but they got the pieces to. I think 11-20 is the sweet spot. We'll see. That defense at pass rush may be hellacious, and they may not have any time to throw anything downfield. But we'll see. I think that defense is going to be better. I don't know if it's reflected in the scoring defense. Hard to hold teams to under 20 points, but Texas, I'm talking about throughout the season, especially when you're going to a higher level of play like Texas is doing in the SEC. All right, so good stuff there. How many points will Colorado State score against Texas this weekend? And also, we don't know how improved Braden Fowler Nicolosi is as a player. He threw 16 interceptions last year. Texas was pretty opportunistic last year.
Yeah.
If they get their hands on some of those turnovers, and he has not necessarily lowered the risk element in this game, that could also blow this game wide open really quickly. So that's something to look at as well. All right, good stuff there, Patrick, with the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. We come back, we'll get into some other NFL news, notes, and nuggets. We'll talk about Derek Stingley a little bit for the Texans. Also, we'll dive into I got a topic about the NFC overall. I did some research about the NFL getting ready for the season and found the trend about the NFC representative in the Super Bowl. We got to get into it. It actually may point to another team on the rise in the NFC. So we'll dive into that. We'll also have Rod's rant of the day. We'll talk about the Texas offense, an element I plan on seeing, an element I think you're going to see a lot more of in the Texas offense this upcoming season. We'll talk about that too. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Coming back on the Horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a smooth so Monday edition of the Rodcast. That's when my man Patrick, my co-host, the Idealionaire, that's when he plays jams that are intended to make the transition from your stress-free, fun-filled weekend to actually your first official football weekend as well. From that stress-free weekend to the dreaded work week, which includes meetings and traffic and all that other stuff that a lot of has a Monday kind of slap you in the face. Is the reason you get a case of the Mondays. He doesn't want that to be a tough, traumatic transition for you. So that's why he plays a lot of jams intended to soothe your soul and make that a smooth transition. Thus, a smooth soul Monday. So we appreciate Patrick cooking us up there. We also appreciate Patrick cooking us up for the topic for the big fat poll of the day. And yes, it is Texas football related because it's game week. Patrick, give the folks the topic for the big fat poll of the day.
How many points will Colorado State score against Texas? Nice and easy
Pretty
question.
Simple.
Pretty simple. We gave you basically 0. They shut them out. Then we go 1 to 10, 11 to 20, and then 21 and up are the 4 options on X.
Oh man, I would say it's already early, but my sweet spot was 11 to 20. That's what I said.
Yeah,
somewhere in there, right over 10, and 38% saying 1 to 10, 38% saying 11 to 20, 24% saying 21 or more.
Yeah, we've got a couple on the text line that are saying it's going to be around 20 to 21. And the basic concept is Texas is going to play all their subs. Texas is going to rotate. Texas is going to play everybody. And so that will allow Colorado State to score. But it's
a good theory.
It is a good theory.
It's good. I like that.
But we can say there is a point of how many players on Colorado State would make the Texas roster.
I say 1. I say 2 could maybe. 1. Torrey Horton's the 1, but if you want to throw in a Marnie Winfield, technically Sark offered him as a receiver, and he committed and decommitted. So maybe 2.
So that goes into, if you look at that, you can say, well, this defense they're young, they're inexperienced, but they should still be able to play even when you start to sub guys in, and even when you start to rotate players, they should be able to still play at a very high level because they're very good players.
That is true, but that's the people that pick 21 up. I gotta say it. The reason that it worries me a little bit because they are right is the spring game, and a lot of the young guys are gonna play. They did not play well in the spring game. They gave a lot of deep balls in the spring game. In the spring game, based on my breakdown here, my analysis, Texas allowed 5 of 11 deep balls, 20 yards or more to be completed. That's on 45%. 4 touchdowns. I don't think it. So that's, that to me that would be concerning if my game plan, if kind of what I just broke down in Behind the Burn Orange Curtain, if my initial thoughts about the way they're going to attack Texas, if they hold true and that materializes, they're going to be chunking it deep, and they could chunk deep on some of those young guys and get some easy scores like we saw in the spring game. So I could see that. No, I really could. I'm hoping that your pass rush though will also, because you have 6 guys on the edge potentially you could be throwing in there now by that time. If you're talking about the subs being in and the game being out of hand, maybe Ethan Burke and Barron Sorrell and Trey Moore aren't in there as much, but you would still have a Colton Vosick in there, a Colin Simmons in there, a Justice Finkley in there coming off the edge. So we'll see. That's a good, that's a good. I like that thought process though. That hey man, if a lot of young guys are playing, there'll be growing pains.
There'll be growing pains. I think there will be. I just don't know how much it's going to be a factor for Colorado State. It'll be interesting to see if they get beaten down early and get pushed back early and Texas able to play. Are they going to be able to stick to the game plan and really do what would kill Texas and make me believe they get 21 points? Which is when the subs come in, throw slants, throw a little, just go and just move the ball just methodically down the field and just play smart football and just try and take the young guys and take what they give you. And seeing if they can still do that in the third and fourth quarter, that's how they get there for me. And I don't know if when you're down 30 points, 20, 30 points, that you think, you know what, let's just play good, smart football here. Or you start slinging it downfield where those young guys who maybe got beat on some of them are going to be able to hang with those wide receivers a little bit better, maybe get an interception or two when you're trying to push the ball that way and those points don't come on the board. And, I mean, there's also, you can throw in the factor, you kicking field goals or you're going for touchdowns if they're Colorado State.
No, it's like I said, it's that's pretty interesting. I actually think that's a good point that the texter was making about a lot of the subs will be in.
Yeah.
And it aligns with kind of what I was saying about, I think they're going to take some chances and chunk the football. Well, we know they're going to throw the football, but I think they're going to chunk it potentially downfield, try to take, or we know they're going to throw a lot of inside breaking routes and slants. And I think you're going to see a lot of deep balls and inside breaking routes and slants in the passing game. That would only make sense. When I break down matchups, for those who are unfamiliar, I reverse engineer everything. I'm just looking at Colorado State and then seeing how they would, because I know Texas as well as anybody. But so how would they? And I think I would like to think all coaches do this too. How would I game plan against my team if I was a coach? Like, what would I look at? Because I know my team really well. So you should be ready for that. You should be ready for, all right, they're going to attack my biggest weaknesses, which are A, B, C. And then that should have, then you shift it to, all right, let me cross-reference that with my strengths. What are my strengths? And then do my strengths, boom, align with their weaknesses? That's your matchup. That's the thread you pull on to try to unravel the whole damn thing. And I think that's where they're going. Also, something I like about Colorado State that I think is interesting, they got some size at tight end too. Got size at tight end, got a little size at wide receiver. We'll get into breaking down their defense versus Texas offense. I don't know if that matchup is I don't know if there's many layers to that matchup. I think there are more layers to the Colorado State offense versus the Texas defense, but their tight ends, they got a Vincent Brown. He's 6'6". They got Jordan Williams, who's 6'5". They got Jackson Warren, who's 6'8". They just, Mason Wow, who's 6'6". They just got some good size at tight end. And I wonder if they'll try to use that a little bit against Texas as well. So keep that in mind. All right. There you go. So topic for the big fat poll today: how many points will Colorado State score versus Texas? We'll get back to some Colorado State discussion because I want to talk Texas's offense a little bit when we get into Raj around the day. But I want to get back to some NFL news, notes, and nuggets. So we'll do that. We'll talk a little Texans. Also, I don't know if it's a troubling trend, but it's something. It's a trend to consider in the NFC the last maybe 8 years that I think could materialize again. We'll get into that. So let's first get informed, educated, and updated on all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros got a 6-3 win on Sunday and split their series with the Orioles. Yusei Kikuchi pitched 5 2/3 innings, allowing 3 runs, but the Astros' record with him starting is now 5-0. Alex Bregman and Yonder Diaz hit back-to-back home runs in the 7th to retake the lead, but unfortunately, Mauricio Dubon left the game after crashing into the wall on an amazing catch, picking up the 3rd out in the bottom of the 7th, and will be evaluated today. The Astros now head to Philadelphia to take on the Phillies, with Roniel Blanco getting the start tonight. And the Rangers dropped their series to the Guardians after starting off the series with a 5-3 win Friday. Corey Seager picked up 3 RBIs over the weekend, but the 20 runs allowed by the Rangers proved too much in the series. The Rangers will now take the day off before facing the White Sox tomorrow. In the NFL, the final week of preseason play wrapped up with the Texans getting a 17-15 win over the Rams, with Cam Akers averaging 7.6 yards per carry, trying to make the final cut. And Deuce Vaughn showed up for the Cowboys in a 26-19 loss to the Chargers with 9 rushes for 53 yards. Trey Lance was able to throw for 323 yards and rush for another 90, but also threw 5 interceptions in the game and fumbled the ball twice, with the Cowboys recovering both. NFL teams now have until tomorrow at 3 p.m. to make their final roster cuts to trim their rosters to 53 players. And college football kicked off this weekend with Georgia Tech upsetting Florida State in Dublin with a 24-21 win on a last-second field goal. SMU picked up a win as well with a 29-24 win over Nevada after being down 11 going into the 4th quarter, and their debut as a Power 4 team. Week 1 of college football now starts on Thursday with 4 top 25 teams on the schedule, and that is your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. Yeah, let's hit some of the college football action from over the weekend. How about this little nugget to get all college football fans pretty nervous about their team? The college football underdogs all went 4-0 against the spread in week 0. Underdogs ruled, man. Georgia Tech was a 10.5 point dog. New Mexico, 13.5 point dog. Nevada was a 28 point dog. And Delaware State was a 40.5 point dog. So the underdogs and the Georgia Tech one. I mean, how about this little stat too about that Georgia Tech upset? Georgia Tech won their first game against a top 10 team since 2015. That last win also came against Florida State. Some freaky stuff. And Florida State just couldn't run the ball. They couldn't run the ball. They couldn't throw it vertically downfield. Florida State's running backs averaged 1.1 yards before contact per attempt versus Georgia Tech. Last season, they were at damn near 3 yards per rush before contact. So Georgia Tech got to give them props, man. They got that thing going there. Tech coach Brent Key was asked about their O-line performance, and he just said, run the damn ball. He didn't say damn, but he said run the ball. And 190 rushing yards for Georgia Tech. So, and it came down to the game winner, 44-yard field goal as time expired in Dublin. So they won in dramatic fashion. But the Georgia Tech had lost 15 straight to top 10 teams prior to their win over the weekend. Big time win for that program,
man.
The reason Georgia Tech is dangerous too is because, if I'm not mistaken, Georgia Tech is in Atlanta. If I'm not mistaken, right? Isn't it in Atlanta or right around the Atlanta metro area? I've told you guys, if you look at the metro areas in this country, all right, that produced the most NFL talent, Atlanta is number one, and it ain't even close. Actually, they left the rest of the country. They're producing more NFL talent in the last 3 to 4 years than any other metro area in the country. And if Georgia Tech starts to get something going, all they need is a little bit of that. They don't need, because they've been doing more with less for years. They started getting some of that talent. Georgia Tech could be a problem for teams in the ACC. So there you go. Well, Georgia Tech love. Also, the SMU. Speaking of, SMU is kind of in the same situation. Remember, SMU decided to forego 9 years of their conference television revenue because their boosters are so damn wealthy that they were like, our boosters said they'll float us for basically a decade, that we're good. And because this SMU's, their thought process is now, because SMU's old money, as we know. I mean, you got the Pony Express, whatever. They were paying kids back then, literally on payroll. And they're like, so now you can actually do it. We are gonna be in this game. This is the game we were trying. We was ahead of the game before. We were doing this before y'all thought about NIL and player empowerment and revenue sharing. We were already in that game. That's how much money we got. So yeah, let's upgrade. Let's go to big boy football. And although they got a scare, they ended up pulling out the win. SMU did. So SMU believes they can potentially be a power, or at least be someone who can make some noise in this new landscape of college football. And it's because of where they are too. They're close to that DFW area. DFW produces the second most in terms of metro areas. That metroplex, it produces the second most NFL talent for metro areas in the country, behind Atlanta. They're in like a very similar situation. I don't know if Georgia Tech got money like SMU, so they might be even better. They got the money, and they got the fertile recruiting ground is right there. They're in the heart of it. Don't they have the jerseys that say Dallas on it? You know that SMU?
They may have those.
I believe it is. I really try to do like you. Yeah, I think believe they have like a version of their things that just says like Dallas. I think they want to represent that. That's smart, because I think they know there's so much talent. Now they're not gonna get a lot of it, but they just need to get a little bit of it.
Yeah, they do
a little bit of it.
The Dallas jerseys.
Yeah. I'm telling you that them and Georgia Tech got very similar in terms of the fertile recruiting grounds they're in the heart of, and I think they right now believe they can make some noise in the NIL. As a matter of fact, Georgia Tech just got a recruit. I don't keep it with a ton of recruiting, but they just got I want to say the most high profile recruit they've had maybe in the history of their program. They just I'll get the name for you, but he's a stud, and it's like a 5-star. And Georgia Tech don't get 5 stars like that. I mean, winning recruiting battles against Georgia and Ohio State, they don't do that. So maybe something special is happening there at Georgia Tech. All right, there you go, some college football nuggets. Oh, also There were two other games. I really didn't dive deep into it. You had Montana State pull off the win over New Mexico.
Yep,
And
that's a D2 beating a D1.
Yeah. I mean, but isn't Montana State kind of a power?
They
Like
are, but it's still a D2.
It is
D1.
right. That is.
Anytime that
right.
happens, it's worth noting.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. That is that's big time. And then Hawaii, would they win over the weekend as well? But Delaware State, I believe it was.
Yeah, they did not. Hawaii did not look great. Which, by the way, difficult game to watch. And when I say that, I don't mean hard to watch. Like it was. I mean, it was very hard to find out where to watch the game.
I mean, it was like, hell, I heard there was a college football game on. It's like, yeah, it was like, where is
four games on TV? There's 4 games today, and y'all don't put this on a real channel? Come on. Who thought that was a good idea not to put that on a real channel? So the friend, we're like, oh, well, we got like a late night game. This is awesome. And then we were like, it's not on TV.
You had to go ESPN Plus or something?
No, it was on an app you had to download that you could only watch on your phone. So then you had to mirror your phone to the TV.
Really? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, it was a problem.
Because it was a problem.
Yeah, because it was like the only TV channel was actually on was Spectrum Sports, which is pay-per-view in Hawaii.
Oh man. Yeah, I did not realize that because I didn't. I did not watch the Hawaii Delaware State game.
The game didn't start till 11 p.m.
That's what I'm saying. I did not watch the game, and I don't. Yeah, exactly. I did not know that. That's crazy. Then why?
Why would you have it on week 0 and not be on TV?
Yes, and not have people be able to watch it. I don't, because that's the whole point is that there's no other football to watch, so people almost are forced. Like, I want to watch football, so I'll watch everything. Yes, I'll watch Delaware State. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was not good when they were like, it's on this app, and I went into the
and not even an app yet. That's like I said, I thought ESPN Plus, like, okay, that
no, it was an app that I had to download for it, and then you go to the Play Store, and then it's like 2.6 in the reviews, and you're like, that is not a good sign.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be bad. My phone's gonna get hacked or something. I don't trust that at all. All right, there you go. Some college football discussion, and we'll have plenty of that, of course, all throughout the show because we'll be back to talking some Texas football. But I want to get to this story. Remember, I've been telling you guys, I think Derek Stingley's going to end up having a potentially a Pro Bowl, All Pro season this season. If he picks up where he left off last season, I think he's going to, have a great year. Could potentially be an All Pro. I'm not the only one who says that. I saw Bucky Brooks. I'll just read you the headline here. We won't go into the story completely. He said Sauce Gardner might hold the title of NFL cornerback 1 right now, but Derek Stingley is coming for the throne in 2024. I'm telling you, and the buzz out of practice is he's been even against that elite wide receiving core, he's been making plays. And he's healthy. Remember, he missed 6 games last year. So when those games toward the end, I mean, he was playing like an elite shutdown corner. I remember in the playoffs, they put him on Zay Flowers, they put him on Amari Cooper, pretty much shut those guys out. So I'm not the only one seeing that Derek Stingley might take that leap. If he takes that leap and they get a shutdown corner on top of the upgrades they made with Danielle Hunter coming in, that Texans defense could look really good. Remember, also they're experimenting with a 3 safety package as well. We talked about that last week. We've seen that in preseason a few times, and they've moved Jalen Petrie back to nickel, which is his kind of normal playmaking position. So keep that in mind if you're a Texans fan. That secondary might be going through a transformation that's going to have them maybe as one of the better secondaries in the NFL. Also, since we're talking about the Texans a little bit, we'll get into this coming a little bit later on, so we got some time. There's a linebacker out there right now, I believe his name is Ernest T. Jones for the Rams. He's a really good player. They're having a contract dispute, and I don't think the Rams want to pay him or gonna pay him. Something happened between the two. Don't be surprised. We've talked about Nick Caserio, and if there's a player out there. Remember we talked about Judon, and it was revealed later, and I thought, man, Texas might be going after him. It was revealed later that the Texans did inquire about Judon because they're just trying to upgrade their defense, period. Ernest Jones the fourth, I believe, is his name. He's a free agent next season, but he's the Rams defensive play caller. 145 tackles, 4.5 sacks last year. They discussed an extension, didn't happen. Wouldn't be surprised the Texans are thinking about an upgrade at linebacker. We know they already have, and they like their young linebackers. But when D'Amico Ryan was asked about, how they view roster construction, he said we're always looking to upgrade. If we can upgrade, we're gonna upgrade. Just the reality. That's how we're gonna look to maximize this window. And yes, I don't know how confident they are that they have like their stability at linebacker. I know they like their guys. They brought in some reinforcements, but this guy is a legit, starting linebacker in the league, like a difference maker. So I wonder if Nick Caserio, I mean, he's a tackling machine, 145 tackles, tackling machine. I wonder if they'll consider it.
I mean, they had a good up close look at him this week in joint practices, so.
Didn't even think about that. That's even better. Actually didn't even cross my mind, Patrick. Everything. I was just thinking about Caserio, but you're right. They actually got a really good look at him. Great point. So I don't know. Just if it had, because last time I was thinking that and I didn't say it. I just put it on our prep sheet for me and Patrick, and I thought to myself, "Damn it, that was it."
It's a great take.
I should have thrown that out there because now I like I'm reactionary. It's like no, but
I can vouch for you, Rod. I saw it.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, but they're always looking to upgrade though, and I think they may decide at any time they can do that, especially with a player like Ernest Jones. Okay, that's some Texas talk. I want to get to this NFC trend, so we can throw that into Rod's rant. We can make that part of Rod's rant. If we have time, we'll get to the Texas football related part of that, and if not, we can throw that into behind the burnt orange curtain. We're previewing Colorado State, so we got all week to do it. Today, I focused on the Colorado State offense versus the Texas defense, but we can preview a little bit about the Texas offense versus that Colorado State defense. I'll give you some players. Haven't gotten into that Colorado State defense much. I'll give you some players you need to know on that Colorado State defense as well. You'll get into that next time we go behind the burnt orange curtain. So we come back, we'll dive into the trend. I don't know if it's a troubling trend, but it's a trend that may foreshadow who's going to win the NFC this year. We'll talk about that when we come back right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Coming back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some NFL discussion. I'm doing some research, obviously getting ready for the season, and I saw this stat, and it is one that is really intriguing. Now, you start looking at the NFC overall. You haven't had a team make it basically to consecutive Super Bowls in the NFC since the 2013-14 Seahawks. Right, only team since 1998, I should say, to go to consecutive Super Bowls. So it's been a while since you've had teams go back to back like that, right? Um, the If you look at this, the last 8 Super Bowl teams, it says here from the NFC. Sorry, the NFC representative. Last 8 Super Bowl representatives for the NFC. They all went into the season with a quarterback who had no more than 16 starts with the current head coach. I'm big on the head coach quarterback combo, right? The holy trinity: general manager, head coach, quarterback. You get that right? Boom. All right, you're on your way. That's your window. Go. And when you're looking at, I always said that you look at the head coach quarterback combo, you haven't had in the Super Bowl era, you haven't had a head coach and a quarterback win their first Super Bowl together. All right, when it's outside of a 5-year window. So once you have a head coach and a quarterback together for 5 years and they don't win a Super Bowl together, history would suggest it's not going to happen. That's the 5-year rule. That's one of the kind of main, main kind of focal points of the 5-year rule. Is that, and there are different reasons for it. I think most of the time it's salary and the franchise quarterback thing, but we can get into that later. But that's why I started looking at that relationship. So the last 8 Super Bowl teams from the NFC all went into the season with a quarterback who had no more than 16 starts with the team's current head coach. Going back to Dan Quinn and Matt Ryan, 2 years together. Doug Peterson and Nick Foles, first year, so 0 starts. Sean McVay and Jared Goff, they had just 2nd year together. Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy Garoppolo. It was a 3rd year with 8 prior starts together because Jimmy Garoppolo kept getting hurt. Bruce Arians and Tom Brady, 1st year together. Sean McVay and Matt Stafford, 1st year together. Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, 2nd year together. Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy, 2nd year together. So it's who's right now in the NFC who's basically been with their head coach for 2 years or less. It's kind of what you're looking for. Who could be that next team? And it feels like Green Bay fits that model. It feels like Green Bay. So I'm not saying it is. I'm just going off the trend, of a head coach and a quarterback being together and having fewer than 16 starts, prior to that season. I got to go back and look. I mean, I think that's because I don't know how many starts that. So I think technically it's more than 16 because you would have the playoff game too for them. So, and then 17 games. So maybe that they don't fit it. Maybe it's Atlanta, brand new coach, first year. We've seen some first year things. It's just that's a weird trend in the NFL.
Is it Baker?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. Baker's a good one too. That's wild. That's no way I could see that.
But I don't either. But I'm just saying it fits the trend.
Yeah,
right.
It does fit the trend. Seattle kind of fits that trend, right? Doesn't Seattle fit that? The new head coach. It's just weird. I just say, like I said, I think it would be someone who has been in the system for at least a little bit. But like I said, I just want to point out the trend on that side that I think and I do think the 49ers had the best shot to get back, but like I said, that stat,
all right. What about
the foreshadows something else?
What about the Cardinals?
Oh, I would say Kyler Murray did finish the season last year really well. He looked good last year.
He's well under 16 starts because of the injury last year, but a new coach last year, so he's got the system in there.
That's a good point. And I can tell you, he actually looked good at the end of last year. We don't talk a lot of Cardinals and Kyler Murray, but I'm telling you, I'll give you some stats as we get deeper into the season if they start to trend the right way and they become a topic and a story. But he looked good last year. At the end of last year, that running game, it was one of the better running games in the NFL once he came back as a starter. and really boost the running game. And that happens, by the way, that happens all the time. We'll get into that with the Cowboys too. The Cowboys running game in the last preseason game looked really good because it was Trey Lance. The running quarterback will automatically boost your running game. It's an it's a +1 in the running game. So they got to account for a whole other man in the running game. So it's always going to make your running game better. And it definitely did that for the Cardinals. So that's a good one. I didn't think about that. That's a good one. Thought it out there too. But yeah, that's something to look at. I think in the NFC, man, when you start looking at overall in the NFC right now, because the AFC just has so many elite quarterbacks.
Yeah.
The NFC just doesn't have the consistency of elite quarterback play. Dak, right? He had his best season ever last season. But remember, the season before that, he had his most interceptions of his career.
Yeah.
And then we thought Jalen Hurts was ascending toward being an elite quarterback, but then he regressed last year. And it doesn't matter with whatever quarterback you're looking at, so you start to see, and even if you you love Jordan Love, well, then you got like a half a season to judge Jordan Love. You got a half a season of, now I trust the Packers when it comes to quarterback, but you don't have a huge sample size of consistency. Jared Goff, he's the most consistent quarterback in the NFC right now. You're looking at it.
Yeah, and that's also though.
Well, Matt Stafford too, but he's got injuries. You've had Matt Stafford, so maybe Matt Stafford's in that conversation.
Yeah, I put him above because Goff. I think you're like, as soon as Ben Johnson leaves, you wonder, is he going to be able to keep going, and are they going to keep finding the way to make him work in what really works well for him?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's why Dak. in the NFC, Dak's right in that conversation with. Now, Matt Stafford has the Super Bowl, so maybe you put Matt Stafford alone in his own kind of in his own category. But the rest of those guys, I just don't know if you've seen the consistency from any of them to say like, oh no, this quarterback is, sets himself apart from the rest of the quarterbacks in that conference. Is Brock Purdy going to make a move this year? Could he take a leap? Certainly could. In that offense now with Shanahan. So it's, like I said, that's why the NFC is interesting because of the inconsistent. Oh, is Dak going to regress this year? That could, if that happens, because the Cowboys, lack of running game, or because the Cowboys don't sign CeeDee Lamb early enough. There could be a number of different outcomes that go down in the NFC. Honestly, the young quarterbacks like Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, those guys could end up just, out of nowhere. And I'm not Caleb Williams. I know he's number 1 overall pick. But they could have this huge impact where maybe they don't necessarily win the NFC. But they're such a impactful factor that they really cause a lot of disruption in the NFC because nobody thought they'd be that good. Everybody thought Washington would be kind of a bottom feeder. Chicago, the reason they had the number 1 overall pick, they turned out to be reasonably good and competitive. They could throw both of those divisions out of whack, the NFC East and NFC North, and then end up causing a lot of, noise and disruption in the conference overall. So that's why I think and then as Atlanta, I think Atlanta's made some really nice moves, especially on the defensive side. You got Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins now with those weapons with Bijan and Kyle Pitts and Drake London. Like, what does Kirk Cousins look like? When usually you put a lot of weapons around Kirk Cousins like that, you see the best version of Kirk Cousins. And there is, like you brought up, Tampa Bay with Baker Mayfield. Where does that stand after Dave Canales? Are the Carolina Panthers ready to do anything? Speaking of Dave Canales, with the Bryce Young, is he a bust, or is Bryce Young this year going to be much improved like quarterbacks have been when Dave Canales takes over? And then there's the Rams. We act like the Rams are rebuilding or something. They went to the playoffs last year. And now they believe, they've kind of reinvented themselves in the post Aaron Donald era for a new, and we know they got a hell of a coach, but for this kind of new era of the Rams, and they still got, we just pointed out, one of the top, if not the best quarterback in the NFC, depending on what your ranking is of those guys. And, I just don't. There's a lot of uncertainty and question marks with the quarterbacks in the NFC, so it makes it really interesting. But I just want to give you that stat.
Yeah, we do know it won't be Daniel Jones.
Hell no. There's some teams that you already know.
That's
New York Giants. The
New York Giants. We
they
can
may have the
save
number
it.
one overall pick.
Say it for facts and stats, but the only team in the preseason without a passing touchdown.
Is that real?
Yes.
Damn, that's bad.
That's not good.
That's terrible. Oh man, if that's foreshadowing, then yeah, they may be in the conversation for the number one overall pick.
No, it's at least they didn't let their franchise running back go.
You're right, to a division rival. Oh, they did. Yeah, that goes also with remember we talked about how incestuous that division is.
Yeah,
that's another element. I didn't even get into that.
Saquon.
That you had a star running back go right over to a division rival. We just had a trade within the division, which also is really rare.
The other teams involved, they were like, the Cowboys were involved in the Saquon. People wanted to go to the Cowboys. They're like, we just want them to go in division. We just somewhere else in division.
Which usually that's a non-starter. It's like, no, man, we can't trade him in division, or we can't allow him to go in division. But it happened there, and there's been a trade within the division. That was a free agency signing, obviously by Saquon. But man, and then you have the Dan Quinn now with Washington, and you got Kellen Moore, who used to be with the Cowboys. Now he's with Philadelphia as the OC. I mean, there's just all of these entanglements within that division. So they know each other really well. There's just a lot of familiarity with everybody in that division. So and they've had, and what's the stat? They haven't had a repeat champion in the NFC East since 2003 and 4. It was the Philadelphia Eagles. So you have 20 years without a repeat champion. There's some funky stuff going on in the NFC, man. In the AFC, it's just who can stop Kansas City. That's it.
Yeah.
It's a pretty boring storyline. I think you may get some drama in the NFC this year, though, and that'd be good for the NFL. I think you got there's a lot of elements that can lead to a ton of drama. Like I said, you can get some of those rookie quarterbacks that ended up achieving really quickly, and if that's the case, they could disrupt those divisions, disrupt the conference, and then you just have a lot of wild card factors. The wild card factor, I think Jordan Love and Green Bay is a wild card factor. I think Atlanta could be a wild card where they're building that team. The Rams could come out of nowhere and make a move. And of course, obviously, San Fran is the favorite, but we're just talking about teams that could upset the balance of the NFC. All right, there you go. Some NFL news, notes, and nuggets. We come back, we'll dive into what the facts, what the stats. Speaking of, we got some college football related stats and some NFL stats to share with you. And then we'll also get back to Texas, Colorado State discussion where we go behind the burnt orange curtain, and we'll talk more preseason discussion. Dallas Cowboys wrapping up their preseason. Texans as well. What did we learn? We'll get into that too coming up next hour. But coming up next segment, what the facts, what the stats, right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Low and Rod Babers. Coming back on the Horn. All right, got a lot of random stats for you today. In what the facts, what the stats. How about this one? We look at NFL preseason notes since now the preseason is officially over. The unders, man, 31 and 18. Third best unders over the last 20 years. The unders in the preseason. That's the way to go. I told you about these after like week 2 of the preseason. Maybe next preseason, keep your eye on those unders. I mean, it makes sense. You got, you got a lot of quarterbacks who are uh, inept in those offenses. It's pretty vanilla. A lot of defenders are trying hard, trying to make teams. So NFL unders are really, really big money maker for the bettors this past season. All right, getting to some other stats and facts and what the facts, what the stats. How about this one? We'll get into this. Is a strange stat. I didn't think about this. I was just looking at some of the preseason standout performances, and I came upon the Kansas backup quarterback Jason Bean. Remember, how about this? A Kansas quarterback hasn't appeared in an NFL game since 1988. Mike Norseth. And now, and Jason Bean, he ended the preseason of 67 quarterbacks who were tracked, number one in EPA per dropback, number one in EPA per attempt, number one in success rate, number one in yards per attempt, number one in air yards, number two in completion rate out of the quarterbacks in the preseason. How about that? Randomly, Lance Lepo is going to have potentially a quarterback that makes a roster in the league. Haven't seen a Kansas quarterback appear in an NFL game since 1988. So and that the one that's a backup quarterback for you that makes a team. That's pretty damn impressive for Lance Lepo and the Kansas program. How about this one from Trey Lance? We talked about the interceptions. He had 5 interceptions in a preseason game. That was the most interceptions in a preseason game since 2017, since at least 2017. I think it's as far back as they could go in the stats. So you haven't seen a quarterback have that kind of careless performance with the football in a long time in a preseason game. The highs and the lows of Trey Lance's experiment with the Dallas Cowboys. Here's another factoid for you. Here's a stat, pretty cool one. Since 1994, only 11 times, all right, 11 times has a quarterback run for a first down on a third or fourth down with at least 15 yards to go in a fourth quarter comeback or game-winning drive situation. So, since 1994, only 11 times has a quarterback run for a first down. It's third or fourth down with at least 15 yards to gain, and it's a fourth quarter comeback or game-winning drive situation. So, this is as dire and as critical a situation as you can get. And of those 11 times it's happened for a quarterback, remember, also a quarterback, Mahomes is the only player to do it twice. Keep that in mind. Since 94, you talk about 30 years here. Right? 30 years, only 11 times has a quarterback run for first down, third or fourth down, 15 plus yards to gain in a fourth quarter comeback, game-winning drive situation. Everything on the line. And twice, the only player who's done it twice is Patrick Mahomes. I said he's a dual threat quarterback, but he doesn't use his dual threat ability until it is the most critical situation. And then he'll say, all right, you know what? I'll use it. I'll break it out. It's an emergency situation. Break glass in case of emergency. Now I'll use my legs. Isn't that a wild stat? That's crazy. First of all, you ain't supposed to be able to run for a first down on a third and fourth and 15 plus yards to go. That dude's done it twice. I guess Jerry Jones was right. He got that option quarterback. He's getting ready to pitch the ball like Mahomes. It's like, no, that's not how he runs, but that ain't how he runs. They're not running the triple option. But scrambling wise, that's amazing. I mean, you would think it'd be any of the all-time great dual threat quarterbacks that have been in the NFL, or Randall Cunningham, or it's going to be a Jalen Hurts or Cam Newton or Lamar Jackson or Steve Young even.
Yeah.
Nope. It's Patrick freaking Mahomes, guys. Dude is, I mean, I find stats like that all the time. I'm like, I don't think we realize how good this dude is. And you know what makes Patrick Mahomes even better? His family is crazy. He does all this with a crazy family. His wife's kind of crazy and wacky. His daddy's got multiple DWIs, crazy. His brother has been arrested and all kind of crazy stuff because he wants to be an influencer and really wants to be liked and loved by the public. And he's got crazy, wacky family all around him. And yet he's able to shut all that out and just focus and be the greatest, you know what I mean? The greatest start to an NFL career we've ever seen. And other than Scotty Scheffler, because I think him and Scotty may be on board too, that I don't know if there's a bigger gap between the best in their sport and the rest in their sport. And he does it all while his family's wilding out. Because his wife's kind of wild too. His wife's wild. And now you got the Taylor Swift thing thrown in the mix, and his wife wants to be best friends with Taylor Swift. Who wouldn't, by the way?
His number one tight end is now one of the most famous podcasters.
Yes, yeah. Now you're a podcaster, pop star thing going on. He's just able to just boom.
You got focus. Your number one wide receiver got arrested twice in the offseason.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, that franchise, I always say, once you become a dynasty, and they're trying to win 3 in a row, so they're there. You're on top for so long. Everybody's looking up at you on top for so long, top of the mountain. People start to see your flaws. They've been staring at you for 3-4 years now. I've been staring at that organization. Now we see the flaws. The ownership's cheap. Even the players themselves voted worst ownership in the league. We've seen different players now starting to get arrested, like Rashee Rice, and their issues are starting to, I think, be exposed to the public. That's okay. I mean, I haven't seen any organization on top for that long. Look at the Patriots. How many scandals did they have and crazy things happen to the Patriots? Murders, all type of stuff. Once you are on top for that long, people will see your flaws. It happens to everybody, by the way. It's celebrities, everybody, because people are just staring at you and examining every piece of your life. If they did it to all of us, people would be talking about our flaws too. People just don't care about our flaws. They don't matter that much. So I think that happens naturally, but his ability to just focus on being great. I get Tom Brady, I guess, had it too, because Tom Brady had a lot going on. He's dating starlets and got baby mama drama and stuff like that. But that really is the ability to compartmentalize is highly underrated for guys like that. All right, there you go. Some what the facts. What's that? I had some Kyler Murray. I'll give it to you real quick because I told you guys that running game for the Arizona Cardinals because my man Patrick brought it up. So I was like, I'm going to look up those stats. How about this? The Cardinals ranked 9th in offensive EPA per play weeks 10 through 18. And now they got a full offseason of a healthy Kyler Murray added. If I think that group, honestly, they could really improve. James Conner was 5th in EPA per rush, 3rd in yards after contact, and 5th in yards created among qualified rushers last season. He can go. And then they go, Kyler Murray's going to run. Remember his design rush rate in the Cliff Kingsbury, close to 20%, like 19.8%. It was 17% in 2023. I think it'll drop a little bit, but he still will be a crucial part of the running game. So, yeah, don't underestimate the Cardinals and that running game. I'm not saying they're going to win that division, but they could make some noise. Last year, their injury luck, Texans had the worst injury luck in the NFL. They had the 3rd worst injury luck in the league. So they'll have a bounce back just from having healthier stars that are available. So they keep your eyes out for the Cardinals. I'm saying they're gonna win the division or anything, but they could disrupt a lot of things. Make upset, the Rams or upset the 49ers here or there, really tip the balance of power in that division. That I think a lot of that's gonna be happening in the NFC this year. Which could really muck it up. All right, we come back. We'll get into some pre-NFL discussion. We'll talk about the Trey Lance experiment for the Dallas Cowboys. Is it over, or are they just beginning this Trey Lance experiment? We'll talk about what we saw in the preseason. We'll also get into some Texas football conversation. Texas versus Colorado State kicking off this weekend. It is game week, so we're diving deep into the breakdown and the game plan for Texas versus Colorado State. I'll tell you exactly how I think Colorado State's going to attack Texas defense, and I think they got a couple of ways that they're going to try to expose Texas. We'll get into that when we go behind the burnt orange curtain. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis, coming back on the horn. All right, thank you for joining us on a Smooth Soul Monday. We appreciate that, and it's a Smooth Soul Monday because of my man Patrick Davis, who comes up with all the musically themed days of the week. And musically themed days of the week. Today is a Smooth Soul Monday. The purpose of a Smooth Soul Monday is to ease you into the work week. Sometimes it can be a bit traumatic going from a stress-free, fun-filled weekend to the very stressful, hectic work week. And because of that transition, my man Patrick wants to make it as smooth as possible for you. And that's why a lot of Smooth Soul slow jams to ease your soul and make it a very smooth transition into a Monday. So we appreciate him hooking us up there. We also appreciate him coming up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day, which is now posted on the Horn ATX account. Patrick, give the folks the topic for the big fat poll of the day.
Big fat poll of the day. How many points will Colorado State score against Texas? Looking at the voting right now, we are at 53% says 1 to 10. So in that single digit to 10-point range is where people seem to be going mostly. 37.5% for 11 to 20. That is where you are at, Rod. And then you get 7% saying 21 and plus. So that was going up a little bit earlier, but now people stepping back on that one. And then I think there's a vote, maybe a vote for maybe 2 for 0, maybe a couple of people that believe that there'll be a shutout.
Yeah, that's that'd be great. Shutouts are, no matter who you get them against, doesn't matter. If you can hold a team to 0 points, that's a hell of an accomplishment in football.
It normally if you're getting a shutout, it's a team that keeps going for it on fourth down.
Or turnovers, or
but they don't kick a field goal at any point. They move it down the field a little bit, but they never kick. They just say, "Well, we're down 35 now, so we got to go for it." And then you don't get that end of game field goal where it's like all of your players are out, and all they have to do is score something to not be shut out, and so they just kick a field goal and lose, 55-3. But you're like, we weren't shut out. That's why it's really, really hard to get shutouts in football, is because normally the coach will just say, just don't let him shut us out. Just go, just get the ball downfield enough so we can kick a field goal. We can go and we'll be fine. We're getting killed either way, but it's not a shutout.
Yeah, they do. They have something they do well. Usually, you shut out. You have basically you don't do anything well. Like it's bad in every facet of the game, and that's not Colorado State. They're just they're very they're deficient in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
And I think that especially the running game and in terms of depth, but they're one of the top 20 best passing offenses in the country. At least they were last year. And I think they can, because of that, because they do have an identity offensively, I think they'll be able to put some points on the board. Yeah. I don't know if they'll score a touchdown, but I think they'll get to the point, like you said, where they'll get in scoring position and they'll be able to put some points on the board. So I won't go shutout. Shutout's hard against anybody.
Yeah.
And Colorado State's they're bad, but they're not that bad. They had 3 losses by 13 combined points last year. When they lost to Colorado, there was a double overtime game. They lost to Colorado. They had a 2-point loss at UNLV, 3-point loss as well. I think that was Hawaii, I believe. They had that double overtime loss, like I said, to CU. So they fought. Late game execution really came back to haunt them against Colorado, Hawaii, and UNLV. If they had handled the late game situations better against those teams, they would have had another win or 2 on the board. They believe legitimately that they are a bowl team, that they should be able to at least make a bowl game. Puts them at 6 wins. So I think they'll score against Texas. I got to make 11 to 20 points. But some of y'all believe they're going to score like 21 points. To me, if they score 20 or more points, that would mean the secondary disappointed. And I would say the secondary may have disappointed because Texas still get a lot of sacks, but if they're scoring easy touchdowns like a deep ball or chunky yardage plays, that could end up playing a huge role too. And we've talked about how I do think ultimately that's where they're going to lean. They're going to lean on their passing game. As well they should. They got one of the better passing games in the country. All right, there you go. So how many points will Colorado State score against Texas? That's what Patrick wants to know. So go check it out at the Horn ATX on the X account. Go check there and vote. We'd like to see your vote and your participation. Also, we'll get into some Texas football conversation where we go behind the burnt orange curtain. Next, we'll also dive into the Trey Lance experiment and talk about what it means for the Dallas Cowboys. They're invested, but should the Cowboys divest, if you will, in the Trey Lance experiment? We'll dive into that coming up. But first, let's get updated, educated, and informed on all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros got a 6-3 win on Sunday and split their series with the Orioles. Alex Bregman and Yanni Diaz hit back-to-back home runs in the seventh to retake the lead, and Mauricio Dubon left the game after crashing in the wall. An amazing catch, picking up the third out in the bottom of the seventh. But the Astros get the win behind Yusei Kikuchi pitching 5 2/3 innings. He allowed 3 runs, but the Astros' record with him starting is now 5-0. The Astros now head to Philadelphia to take on the Phillies, with Roniel Blanco getting the start. And the Rangers dropped their series to the Guardians after starting off the series with a 5-3 win on Friday. Corey Seager picked up 3 RBIs over the weekend, but the 20 runs allowed by the Rangers proved too much in the series. The Rangers will now take the day off before facing the White Sox tomorrow. In the NFL, the final week of preseason play wrapped up with the Texans getting a 17-15 win over the Rams, with Cam Akers averaging 7.6 yards per carry trying to make a final cut. And Deuce Vaughn showed up for the Cowboys in a 26-19 loss with the Chargers with 9 rushes for 53 yards. Trey Lance was able to throw for 323 yards and rush for another 90, but also threw 5 interceptions in the game and fumbled the ball twice, with the Cowboys recovering both. NFL teams now have until tomorrow at 3 p.m. to make their final roster cuts to trim their rosters to 53 players. And college football kicked off this weekend with Georgia Tech upsetting Florida State in Dublin with a 24-21 win on a last-second field goal. SMU picked up a 29-24 win over Nevada after being down 11 going into the fourth quarter in their debut as a Power 4 team. Week 1 of college football now starts on Thursday with 4 top 25 teams on the schedule. That is your Horn headlines.
All right, Patrick, thank you for the Horn headlines. We appreciate those. Let's talk about the Cowboys a little bit, then we'll get back to college football because we'll go behind the burn-ons curtain. Preview Texas versus Colorado State a little bit. I'll give you my thoughts. I always try to come in this situations game. We can reverse engineer game plans, look at how I think teams are going to attack Texas based on the research that I've done and my knowledge of the Texas football team. So I'll give you their offensive game plan versus the Texas defense. We'll go into that when we go behind the burnt orange curtain. But let's talk a little Cowboys here and talk about the Trey Lance experiment. You just brought it up there, Patrick. In the last preseason game, Trey Lance, 67% completion percentage, 323 passing yards, and a passing touchdown. You think to yourself, oh, man, that's pretty good. Yeah, but there were also 5 interceptions in there. He was sacked 3 times. He did have 11 rushes for 90 yards, including a 46-yard touchdown run. But as you also mentioned, there were 2 fumbles in there as well. So he is the definition of high risk, high reward as a player. And I do believe it, he showed you just in that one preseason performance, that encapsulated why, a team like San Francisco would risk it all on a Trey Lance, but also why a team like San Fran would decide we got to move on from Trey Lance because he cannot play quarterback for us because of the risk involved with his skill set. And he right now leads all quarterbacks in the preseason in yards and rushing yards as well. So that's really, really impressive. You see the upside. It's tremendous. He has some freakish physical tools that you cannot teach and you cannot coach. And there's no doubt about that. But there's some of the basic requirements of playing the quarterback position that he just cannot execute. And that he just doesn't seem to have naturally, like field vision, like accuracy and ball placement. He doesn't really, I don't necessarily think he sees and reads defenses really well either overall and kind of understanding how they work. And, all of that may just be the result that he just hasn't played enough football. It could just be that simple, that if he gets enough reps, and I think they're the Trey Lance apologists and those who advocate that, hey, man, he just needs more time, more development, and they don't want to move on from him and call him a bust. They look at the fact, and it is undeniable, he just hasn't played a lot of football. 519 career pass attempts combined in high school, college, and the NFL. 13 quarterbacks in the NFL had more than that last season. He just hasn't really played a lot of games at the quarterback position either. if you just go look at the amount of games he played, 9 high school games at quarterback, 17 in college at North Dakota State, and 8 NFL regular season games with 4 starts. So he just, I mean, you can argue it was irresponsible on the 49ers part to even risk it all and trade all that draft capital to move up to get him, because you only had at the time where you drafted him, 26 games of him playing the quarterback position, like total, like in his life. So I think a part of them was thinking, oh man, ultimate upside. If he works out, we're getting, we're getting basically a young player, because I think he's right now just 24 years old. So extremely young player, and we're getting him in the infancy of his development as a player, the infancy of his development. So, man, the upside would be even more tremendous. It'd be even higher. And I just don't think he has really been able to transition into going from being a really good athlete playing quarterback to being an actual NFL quarterback. And that's been tough he's got everything that you could want, like kind of the raw materials of the quarterback. But I just think for him, he's not naturally a QB. It's unnatural to him. And I think the best description is from Bob Sturm, who says, it's like he can do things most quarterbacks can't do, but can't do things most quarterbacks can do. In a nutshell, that is Trey Lance. He can do things that most quarterbacks can't do, but the little things that most quarterbacks can do, he can't execute those. So to me, he's that. I think there's an old meme or back in the day that she's a 10, but she's a 10, but she's got some deal breaker, some tragic flaw about her, whether it be she doesn't shave, or she's got bad breath, or she's really jealous, and if I don't answer the phone for 4 or 5 hours, she may burn my clothes and slash my tires. Right, whatever it is. She's smoking hot, but she's got 3 cats already, and I don't know, so I want to date a crazy cat. Like, whatever it is, all right, whatever the reason, he doesn't have the it quality as a quarterback right now. Except the argument would be, hey, if he gets more playing time playing the quarterback position, then you'll start to see that progress. We just haven't seen it right now. And for the Cowboys, for him being a 3rd string quarterback, can you afford to keep around a developmental quarterback like that? Paying, I think right now it's $5.3 million cap hit, so it's not killing the Cowboys. The roster spots are probably more important than the money at this point with the Cowboys. So I'm not saying he can't have an kind of an unconventional development or an unconventional path to being a success. Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, Ryan Tannehill is probably in that discussion. We've seen a lot of quarterbacks who've been able to reach starter status, franchise quarterback status through kind of non-traditional path to get there. And he could be that guy. But right now, oh man, that's way too much risk. He's just not a quarterback you can put out there and really count on him to win you a game. He's more likely to lose you a game than win you a game.
And that's kind of the biggest factor, that you look at a lot of guys that you may say, they're not really a polished quarterback, and they have these flaws and their accuracy is not really there, and they make bad decisions, but they win games. They just find ways to win. Trey Lance doesn't do that. And so if you say Trey Lance can't find a way to win, then all those other problems are big. And now he's just a guy that coaches love, because they go, no, I can train him. I can fix him. He's just the girl who always dates losers. Mm-hmm. And she's like, no, but I can fix him. It's like, no, you can't. This is what they are. Yeah. There's a reason 49ers dumped him, was because they realized he's just not a winner. And so if we say we got to train him to be not only a better quarterback, but we have to train him how to be a winner, how to have that killer instinct in him, that is probably one of the reasons why has not advanced in 3 to 4 seasons of football, and is kind of the exact same player that you saw 3 to 4 years ago, is that he doesn't have that instinct to say, I will be the best quarterback in the NFL. I will win this football game. I will win. He just goes, no, I'm pretty good. You get me out there, I can scramble some, and I can throw the football. And you go, that's not good enough to be in a league where there's 10 to 15 elite, like top starting quarterbacks in the NFL. You have to be in that group of, in the world, top 10. And if you don't have that drive to be that and just find a way to win football games, that's where it starts to lose on a guy like that. That's so much potential. I need to see that intangible quality of just being a winner, finding ways to pull things out. And he doesn't seem to have that at all.
Yeah, normally that's a great point. The way they talk about the it quality, or what you talk about him just as a winner. I agree with you, and I'm not gonna just say he'll never. No. He's a bust, and he'll never amount to being a starter in the NFL. But right now, I'm kind of with you. I don't see it. I don't see enough promise. In him as a quarterback.
And honestly, I'd want to put him on a team and go out there and lose some games, and then tell me if you hate losing so much that you're never going to do it again. Or do you not mind it? Because if you don't mind losing, then you can't play at that level that you need to be a starting quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, you drafted that high, you're expected to be a franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about. I mean, it's like Trey Lance could easily. I don't even know if Trey Lance at this point is your dependable backup. Because, like I said, he's more likely to lose you a game than win you a game. You put him in there. You want a guy that's why you like game managers as backups. All right, at least you go out there, don't lose the game. Because a game manager, at that point, you don't lose games. You manage the game. And he definitely can't manage the game yet. And that goes back to what I've said about quarterbacks. Development, it's more of a, people talk about game manager and they see it as a negative stigma and kind of a negative tag that people throw on quarterbacks. But I think it's just a cycle. It's a phase in the development of a quarterback. You at one point have to master being a game manager. Then at one point you become a game executive in that offense, right? You go from being a manager to an executive. You're going to be the franchise quarterback. They're just steps in your development. And I don't know if Trey Lance has ever been able to manage a game. Actually,
no
quarterback. Simply just managing the game.
Like we I asked you earlier, what team could he start on? You bring up the Raiders. Gardner Minshew is that guy that isn't your prototypical quarterback. He doesn't do a lot of things right, and he may cost you a game here or there.
And he's an off-schedule guy too, yeah.
But he's going to win you games that he has no business winning because he just has that drive in him. He's the guy who parked his van outside of a gym to try and make this dream happen. Like, he's that guy. So you'd rather put that guy out on the field and go, we know that you're not a franchise quarterback. We know you don't have that intangible quality that we think Trey Lance could have, that being a franchise. You don't have all the physical gifts. You don't have, but also I can put you out, and on any given day, I feel good about you leading me out on the field. We talk about the Steelers. Neither one of those guys on the Steelers has got the locker room believing that they are going to go out there and win football games. Trey Lance needs to have that. If you don't have any of these other things, if you can't throw the ball accurately, you can't read a defense, you can't see the field well enough to pick your guys, you better give me something else in there that makes me think, no, this guy's going to find a way to win. Vince Young had 8 plays, they said, Jeff Fisher? Like, they didn't give him any plays, and he still won Rookie of the Year.
He won games. Well, he won games too. He had that winning quality. He's just a guy that won. I mean, he didn't look great all the time.
I don't know if there's a more perfect example of a guy that maybe didn't have the best gifts or talent in skill in that, but was a winner at the base level. There's nobody you would rather have lead you out of that locker room. Yeah. And that for Trey Lance, if that quality, I have not seen it in the preseason. Like, I don't care. Throw 5 interceptions, win that preseason game, even though it's preseason. You're the only quarterback. They ain't pulling you. Win the game. At least give me that, and I'll go, man, did you see Trey Lance in the fourth quarter, and he ran for 120 yards, and he couldn't throw the ball at all, but he won the game? At least give me that. Yeah.
No, I don't disagree. I don't think he has that either. Like, I don't know if he has that. And I think all of it's because he just hasn't played a lot of quarterback in his life. Because that's a natural leadership position. And even Sark, to your point, what does Sark say he looks for in a quarterback? I look for competitiveness. I want a guy that's got that competitive sickness. All right. And I look for natural leaders. Like, you got to be a natural leader, competitive. Those are kind of the two intangibles he looks for. I think the tangible things he looks for with traits are he wants accuracy and quick hands. Quick hands because He has a lot of RPO, mesh manipulation in his offense, sleight of hand. So quick hands matter to him, throwing from different angles, platforms, off-platform throws. So that's what he looks at. But the leadership and competitiveness, and I believe that's what you're referring to, is that, hey, man, can I see you just go out there and be determined and will your team to win games, even if it ain't pretty. It can be ugly. It can be ugly, and you can have some bad, plays and decisions you made in that game. But in the end, do you find a way to win? And you don't see much of that with Trey Lance. So, like I said, there's a lot to love about his skill set, but then quickly it's like going on a date with a smoking hot dime piece, and you realize within like 20 minutes of the day, it's like, oh man, I will try my best to close this deal, but there ain't no relationship here. This is going to be the best case scenario. This would be if we become friends with benefits, because we're not compatible in that way. And I feel like the more you get to know Trey Lance, the more you realize he's not really compatible with the quarterback position.
No, Trey Lance, you take the girl out, she spills a drink, and you're like, no, she's a little clumsy. And then then she spills her food, and you're like, all right. And then she trips on the way to the bathroom, and you're like, okay, there's a problem now. Something is wrong with you.
I wouldn't trust her to handle a child. It's could be bad here. And I want a child that's coordinated. If mama ain't coordinated, then that's gonna be a problem. No, I just think ultimately, obviously, choosing a quarterback is like choosing a significant other. The woman you marry or man is not always the hottest person you ever dated, and that's fine. It's about compatibility. There are a lot of the traits you look for, right? Sense of humor. You look for all these other things. Are they smart? Are they bright? Are they intelligent? Are they kind? All those little things, those intangibles and immeasurables, but you got to get to know them first. I feel like the 49ers, they basically met Trey Lance. They kind of met him in a strip club. They just saw the dime piece, and they saw the smoking hot bod, and they saw, man, this is a 10. Physically, he is a 10, but you got to get to know him. And when you get to know him, you go, oh, yeah, we can't be together. This ain't gonna work. And I think the 49ers, that trade, they gave up a ton for Trey Lance. Like, they knew he was going to be the future of that franchise, and then realized pretty quick. I haven't asked Channel this, but one day I will, when everything settles down. How quickly did you know he wasn't the guy? When did you figure out, like, this dude is not it? Damn it, that you screwed up, that you really messed up. You risked it all for a potential bust at the quarterback position.
Because wasn't that the rumors that Kyle wanted Mac Jones instead?
Yeah, that was Chris Sims said that. My boy Sims said that, who's close to Shano, because we all are pretty close. He said Mac Jones was his guy. Which,
I mean, we could say is that Patriots or Mac Jones he ain't on the same roster either.
Exactly. It wouldn't have worked out either. So either way, I'd rather the trailer. I'd rather the mystery box than the Mac Jones thing. But I think the belief was that Mac Jones and his system were better. Remember, he was a Kirk Cousins guy too.
Yeah,
Shano was. He wanted Kirk Cousins for a long time, and then ended up, I think, settling for Jimmy Garoppolo. But even when he was with Washington, remember the ownership wanted them to draft RG3. The Shanahan clan wanted Kirk Cousins, and they decided to do both. So yeah, I mean, nobody's going to be perfect when it comes to selecting quarterbacks. That's why I always say you should just like the Cowboys, who have drafted the fewest amount of quarterbacks in the NFL since 2000. So they've had a lot of luck when it comes to the quarterback position. But that's why you keep drafting them. The 49ers, they were saved by Brock Purdy. I mean, think about where they'd be if Brock Purdy was not, Mr. Irrelevant for that franchise right now. Where would they be? Still trying to hold on to Jimmy Garoppolo and trying to make that work?
Yeah, hoping that foot gets better.
Yeah, right. Now they got new life because of Brock, and nobody has called them out about the Trey Lance trade recently. Like, we've just forgotten about it. We called them out for it a little bit. But for the most part, we never called them out about making one of the worst trades in the history of the NFL. In the history of the league. Nobody even talks about it. Why? You hit on quarterback. Well, everything else is forgiven.
No, I mean, the Dolphins fleeced you for Trey Lance and then stole your coach.
Yeah.
To reap the rewards.
Yeah. No, like I said, we'll see what the Cowboys do, but Trey Lance is not gonna be the emergency quarterback for you, because you can't put him in a crisis, because he is a crisis. Like, he is a walking crisis for your quarterback.
And let's state for the record, he threw 5 picks against not starters.
Yes. No, we know. Yes.
They weren't
right?
starters either that he was playing against.
No. Yeah, you put them out there against starters, and I agree with you. You won't even get. At least you got the upside against the backups.
Yeah.
You saw the upside. You're like, oh man, this dude, 11 rushes, 90 yards, 46-yard touchdown. You saw he can throw the football. He doesn't need to have, those windows don't need to be, windows that for him really big windows against backups, because they're not. Those guys aren't necessarily closing with the closing speed of a starter, and they don't analyze plays like the starters do. But against starters, man, those five picks and turned to 8 picks, 2 fumbles. You won't always recover those. They'll be stripping the football a lot more from them. So the truth is, the Trey Lance experiment, I don't know if it's a failure, but it's definitely not reaping the rewards the Cowboys would have hoped at this point. So, all right, we'll come back. We'll get into some college football news, notes, and nuggets on the other side. Oh, also Deron Bland. This is sad news for the Cowboys. Deron Bland out 4 to 8 weeks. He's got a foot injury, a stress fracture in his foot. So he's going to be out. The young cornerback, Caleb Carson, they drafted in the 5th round, probably going to get a lot more reps because he's shown a little bit of promise. But that's the bad news for the Dallas Cowboys coming out of the preseason. So they still won't have access to both of their all-pro corners at the same time. Last year, Trevon Diggs was hurt. Deron Bland became the all-pro. And now that Deron Bland is an all-pro too, and both of them he's going to be out for 4 to 8 weeks to start the season. And it'll just be Trevon Diggs manning that other side. Now, here he's bouncing back pretty well too. That Trevon Diggs looks good in practices. All right, that's your Cowboys update. We'll come back. We'll get into some Texas football discussion, go behind the burnt orange curtain, and discuss Texas matchup versus Colorado State. I'll tell you how I think that Colorado State offense is going to attack that Texas defense, and I'll give you some players to watch on the Colorado State defense as well. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some Texas football conversation. It is game week, so we're talking a lot about Texas' upcoming opponent, the Colorado State Rams. We'll get into the game plan. I think possible game plan that Colorado State's going to have offensively versus Texas, and we'll give you some of the players you need to know. If you got time, we'll start to preview that Colorado State defense a little bit. Talk about how they're going to defend that Texas offense. But let's start with the quarterback here because Braden Fowler Nicolosi reportedly was offered $600,000 to leave Colorado State to go to K-State, allegedly. But he is a second-year starter for them. He'll be a second-year starter this upcoming season. Last season, 62% completion percentage. You'll look at it. He's a guy that can throw the football. 22 touchdowns passing, 132 QB rating, 16 interceptions though. So there's some gunslinger mentality with the young man. He looks like I think ultimately he has some talent. I mean, he can, like I said, he can chunk the football, but he's careless with the football too. And if he can lower the risk in his game, I think he can be a higher level quarterback. But right now, Texas has a lot of opportunities with him and how much they throw the football to be able to get some takeaways, get some interceptions. Last year, Texas was one of the leaders nationally in interceptions with 16 interceptions. We'll see if that number can increase. This will be another opportunity for them to really show their improvement in making plays on the football, because this group is going to throw the football a lot. You go look at their running attack. They were 125th in rushing yards and rushing yards per game last season, 120th in yards per carry last season, but they were a top 20 team in passing yards and passing yards per game. And so that's what they do really well, is throw the football. It is an air raid-ish attack. Matt Mummy is the quarterback's coach and assistant head coach, so he's not the offensive coordinator, but there are a lot of air raid tendencies within the offense, throwing the football. A lot of short, quick game, passing game built on the quick passing game and the quick slant. A lot of those are the throws. Very few vertical throws within the offense. That could be the tendency breaker in big games. You got to break tendency to win. That could be the tendency breaker versus Texas. That maybe they start deploying their wide receivers with more vertical routes downfield, and also the tight ends. Tight ends got good size. We'll get into that in a second. But a lot of this will depend on a lot of the, I would say, the game plan for them would depend on the improvement of Braden Fowler Nicolosi and whether he can throw the football vertically without giving the football away and without throwing interceptions. Like I said, I think he's got some talent, but there's a gunslinger mentality. When he's throwing the football, there's one guy you got to know, Torrey Horton. He's the one player that I think could play on the Texas roster. And not just make the roster, he could play for Texas. He is a speed demon, 575 yards after the catch, 575 yards of his over 1,000 yards receiving came on throws under 10 yards. So we're just looking at tendencies, right? We're looking at patterns and trends. More than half of his throws, or at least his passing yards, came on throws of under 10 yards. So it's a quick passing game. I told you it's built. Their offense and their passing game is built on the quick throws and the slants. More importantly, 575 yards after the catch. That was 11 most in college football. So he's really good with the ball in his hands. He actually was had the fourth most receiving yards in college football over the last 2 years. 22,267 receiving yards, only behind Romo Dunze, Malik Neighbors, and Marvin Harrison Jr. So he's really productive. He can really be the catalyst for an offense. You can build the entire passing game around him. 96 receptions, 1 year, 71 receptions. The year before that, 8 touchdowns in back-to-back years. So he can make plays in the red zone, in the end zone too. He had a average top speed of nearly 22 miles per hour last season. That was the 4th best in college football. So he can run. Remember, Xavier Worthy was clocked as the fastest man in college football last season when he hit 22.7 miles per hour. And this dude averaged nearly 22 miles per hour. 23 forced missed tackles. He's a problem with the ball in his hands. Lines up. This is the thing. And this is another tendency. Like I said, more than half of his receiving yards are on throws under 10 yards. So you're talking about a guy you got to defend on the short, quick throws, especially a slant, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But he lines about wide about 75% of the time. So they don't move him around and put him in the slot very often. I think that's another tendency breaker. I think they start to move him around. I think that number with him out wide is probably close to 55% this season. And I think maybe in this game, maybe they put him in slot more than they've ever played him in the slot. There will be some way they break tendency. I think that's one of them. I think another way that you may see them do it is vertical throws down the field. They don't throw a lot of deep throws and a lot of deep shots. They don't take a lot of those. I think they will versus Texas. And Torrey Horton, 5 of 27 on deep passes. Last season did have a drop as well on deep passes. It's just not something they do really well, not something that they lean on in their offense. Colorado State 105th in deep ball passing grade last season. So they were one of the worst at it, and they don't do it well. That's another way, though, since they've put that on film. Texas may not be expecting it. It'd be a way to get some easy scores, pass interference, potentially really shock Texas or get some cheap touchdowns by throwing it deep, which is something Texas was susceptible to last season. And that's something we'll also get into. But that's how they're going to start, man. They're going to be a pass-first team. They may try to run the football. If they do, I think it'll be interior runs. We know Texas has now speed, depth, experience on the edge. I think if they're going to try to run it, they won't be able to get to the edge and have perimeter runs. Texas is way too fast, way too athletic for that. But if they want to run the football, they have some experience in the interior of their offensive line. Their center may be an NFL guy. He's got a chance to play on Sunday. Jacob Gardner is the center. They have Tanner Marley, who's a guy that's played multiple spots on that offensive line, but he's going to be a multi-year starter. And I believe the scuttlebutt is around that program that he's going to move inside. And that they have Drew Maas, who's a right guard for them, also has played multiple spots on the offensive line. He's got 34 starts on his belt. The belief is that he's going to move inside. So 3 starters return on the O-line. And I think the belief is that they're going to play inside. If that is the case, you'll be matched up against a question mark for Texas, not a weakness, a question mark for Texas in the interior D-line, where they brought in a lot of reinforcements this past offseason via the transfer portal. And that is somewhere they may be able to expose Texas with the interior power running game. And by the way, Texas has not been tested in training camp with interior runs as much. How do we know that? Because they lost Cedric Baxter. So I can tell you right now, they ain't been working a lot of power run game. Nope, they haven't. They can't. And if they have, they've been doing it with, walk-on running backs and been doing it with, probably running backs with green jerseys on. And that's something we'll talk about during the Michigan week. You got to get your work in, but I guarantee you Texas has taken a very cautious approach to it. So if you're Jay Norvell and you want to get physical with Texas, right up the gut is probably the way they're going to try to do it, because they do have they got some experience. I don't know if they got size. They got experience. Their O-line average is about 6'5", 305. Not bad, but 6'5", 305, that won't surprise or shell shock Texas by any stretch. Another player to keep your eye on, Armani Winfield. Remember, he once was committed to Sark at a wide receiver position. He ended up decommitting, committed to Baylor, and now he is via the transfer portal. He's with Colorado State. And he's got some top end speed too, because Sark recruits a certain type, and he likes speed demons, and Armani Winfield can run. So I think that's something you want to look at. And they're just recruiting more size overall. I mean, their wide receiving core has got good size. Torrey Horton's about 6'2". Armani Winfield is about 6'2". He's right around there. They got actually on their website, they got Torrey Horton listed at 6'3". They got Donovan Ollie, another wide receiver who's a transfer. I think he's actually from Texas, Wiley, Texas. But he is a transfer from Washington State, and he's a big receiver. He's 6'3". So they got some size at wide receiver, and they got size at tight end. So we're going to watch them not only trying to stretch Texas vertically on the outside, but potentially up the seam. They got a tight end, Mason Muau, who's 6'6". They got another tight end who's got some size, Jackson Warren, who's 6'8". They got Jordan Williams, who's 6'5". They got Vince Brown, who's 6'6". So they got some height at tight end. They may try to hit Texas up the seam at tight end. That's something I think I would be looking out for too. That trying to maximize where you have a lot of your talent advantages. I don't know if it's an advantage over Texas, but at least you have your strengths. You have some talent strengths. Their strengths are really concentrated. They're in different areas, right? At wide receiver, you got a couple of guys. I think the passing game overall, top 20 passing game, bottom 20 rushing attack for them. So pretty obvious what they're going to lean on, what's going to be the identity of this offense. So I think you got some talented wide receiver. You got some good bodies, like body types and frames at tight end. I think your interior of your line, that's a strength for you too. You're going to see them try to maximize that. And on offense, other than that, they don't have much else that Texas should be threatened by offensively. But like I said, that would be a good test because, guys, we know the secondary last year was the biggest liability on defense for Texas. The secondary was. And it has, I've said this before, the secondary is one of the only areas where Texas has not improved since Sark has been here. They really haven't taken a huge step, a huge leap. This should be the year. I think it's also the last part of the roster construction for Texas. That last recruiting class you had, that was, you had 5 DBs in that recruiting class. And then you brought in Makuba in the transfer portal. Now look at the starters: Malik Muhammad, second-year player; Derek Williams, second-year guy. You're building that your secondary now, and I think it was one of the last phases of roster construction for them. If you kind of look at, you only got certain talent acquisition cycles, you go start looking at the few Sark has been. He's focused on offense, O-line, quarterback, wide receiver, especially running back has gotten a lot of attention. He's an offensive guy, so we built the offense first. And then PK is like, hey, man, you got to wait your turn. And now I think PK is getting a chance to build the defense in terms of being able to meet his vision as a coach. But last season, guys, and I just told you, I think they're going to try to throw the football as a tendency breaker, vertical downfield. They're going to try to throw it deep. But I told you the passing game is built on a quick game and slants, inside breaking routes. Guys, inside breaking routes for Texas was a problem last year. It was a problem the year before that. All right, on slants. Hell, in 2022, on slants alone, you allowed a first down touchdown rate of 43%, 6.9 yards per target, over 65% completion percentage on just slants alone. If you look at inside breaking routes in 2022, damn near 63% completion percentage, over 9 yards per attempt, first down touchdown rate of damn near 50%, explosive play rate of over 20%. In 2023 versus Power 5 starting quarterbacks, inside breaking routes of any kind, damn near 62% completion percentage, over 9 yards per attempt. And on money downs, we're talking about money downs, right? Third and fourth down, where you got to have it, conversion rate of damn near 50%. Explosive play rate of close to over 20%. Even in the spring game, inside breaking routes, if they're going to play a lot of guys, there'll be a lot of guys we saw in the spring game. 9.9 yards per attempt on inside breaking routes. 3 touchdowns. They did get 2 interceptions. I'll give them that. So maybe they're getting better at making plays on the ball, but still giving up some easy completions on inside breaking routes. And if you will look at the deep ball, which I think they're going to do is a change of pace. You got some speed on the outside with Imani Winfield. You got some speed on the outside with Torrey Horton. And on film, you haven't showed the ability to convert on those. But I think an improved Braden Fowler Nicolosi, his connection with Torrey Horton, he's a speed guy. I think they'll take some shots at Texas, especially when Texas is in man-to-man coverage. Against the deep ball Texas last year, against Power 5 starting quarterbacks, so not the backups they played, over 40% completion percentage on deep passes, 20 yards or more, and you had 6 opponents that were actually better than 50% completion percentage on deep balls. In the Big 12 title game, Oklahoma State, 3 of 7. On deep passes. That does not include the PI call. That was a non-PI that probably could have been called. That was an open wide receiver that the quarterback just missed on a deep ball in that game. And we all remember what Washington did on deep passes, 20 yards or more. 75% completion percentage, 238 yards, 2 touchdowns. Now, that's the best deep ball passing team in the country last season. But still, I mean, they were able to connect deep against their own team, right, in the spring game. 45% completion percentage on deep passes, 4 touchdowns. So I think they're going to throw it deep. They probably read about the spring game too. I think they're going to throw it deep and test that secondary with their strength, which is their passing game and their wide receiving core. And I think they're going to work that underneath and work those inside breaking routes over and over again. And when they try to run, which they're bad at anyway, they're going to try to run up the guts of Texas toward the uncertainty and the question marks that they have in that interior D-line. That's your offensive game plan for Colorado. You snuff that out for your Texas, you're going to blow them out. And we'll see plenty of Arch Manning and plenty of Jarrett Gibson in the running game. But if they're able to execute some of the concepts I'm bringing up here early on in that game, they could make this thing way more competitive than Longhorn fans would like it to be. All right, there you go. We'll talk about some names to know on defense. I like their two safeties. I really do. Jack Howell is his name, and Henry Blackburn. They have players at safety that may be all conference players for them. That's something I think for Texas that they got to watch out for. New wide receiving core. So the chemistry and the continuity and the communication between Quinn and the wide receivers, if it's off, these are some safeties that may be able to take advantage of it. And when you have veteran safeties, you can disguise a lot more with coverages. When you have veteran safeties, that is something they do. So they might challenge the passing game for Texas in that regard. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. But coming up next, we'll get into a little off the record right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Rivers coming back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Got a couple of topics I want to hit here. One NFL related, one college football related. So Jim Harbaugh, he was telling a story about his starting quarterback Justin Herbert, and he said that Justin Herbert was among 11 or 12 players who who got stuck on a broken elevator at the team hotel in Dallas on Friday night. And he said the players and some other members of the team traveling party, including Hall of Famer Dan Fouts' wife, Jerry, were on the elevator without air conditioning for 2 hours. And Dallas Fire and Rescue removed those on the elevator one by one through the ceiling panel. Harbaugh says, we dodged a bullet. Only Harbaugh can describe this. Listen, he said, we dodged a bullet. I usually think of dodging a bullet, of dodging an injury in football. You've got to get good at that. You've got to get good at making yourself harder to break. That's a shared experience that brought them closer together. I just missed it. Being on that elevator, it was like, wish I could have been there with those guys, but Justin Herbert was. And he said, Justin Herbert, his hair was a little wet, but his shirt was completely dry. That was another thing that blew me away. The guy is just a beast. He said the remarkable thing that came out of it was to a guy, young rookie players, Justin Herbert's a leader. He was a rock, kept everybody calm. Jerry Fouts told me the same thing, pulled me aside after they got out and said just how great Justin was, and everybody kept their poise. You get in those situations, and it's a test of wills. I was proud of each of the guys and the two women that were on the elevator. That's a win. You feel good about yourself. You were challenged. It was a test of will, and you pull it down and you pull it in. It was a camaraderie amongst that group that is even stronger than it was before. It's like, what? He was stuck on an elevator. What happened?
It was a very Harbaugh answer right there. Very Harbaugh.
It really was. Look how complimentary he was of just like basically Justin Herbert, like saying, I was like, no, he was on there with everybody else. Apparently, he was there to keep everybody calm. And I guess it's saying his shirt was dry. I mean, he wasn't even sweating. He wasn't even sweating. He was just so calm, cool, and collected. Oh, man, Jim Harbaugh knows how to spin it, man. Good for that dude. He knows how to spin it. Okay, how about this one? Deion Sanders knows how to spin it, too. And for the second time, at his second stop as a head coach, he has banned a reporter. They banned Sean Keeler of the Denver Post, basically, or he's not going to answer questions from him. And he basically has decided that, no, he's not going to answer for it. So now people are wondering what the reason is. The speculation is because they said he's been really negative, and he wrote an article. Here it says in Pro Football Talk. He said he wrote a column questioning Deion's refusal to answer questions for anyone affiliated in any way with CBS, local, national, or digital, because of perceived slights or whatever from someone under the broader CBS umbrella. Sanders was asked at a Saturday press conference about his plan for handling questions that he regards as negative going forward. He said, and said a reporter, when I ask a negative question, will you not answer them anymore? And Sanders said, that's being negative right now. We have an exchange from Deion and this guy, Sean Keeler. Do we have this?
Yeah.
This is not I don't think the most recent one. This is an exchange from them, and just to show you how Deion feels about this Denver Post report.
Coach Sean Keeler, the Denver Post. Happy summer, my man.
What? You don't like us, man. Why do you do this to yourself?
Come on.
But what happened to get you like this?
It's a good question.
No, I'm serious. Because I want to help. No, I'm serious. I want to help. Like, it would be hard for me to really engage in someone I don't like or something I don't like. I'm just asking why. Like, why?
Gotta pay
What
bills,
did I do?
You didn't do anything.
Whoa.
Because it's not normal.
We can talk about that.
Okay.
Can I ask you a football question?
No.
Seriously.
No, we'll talk about that. When we talk about that, I'll talk about that with you.
Yeah. So he's not officially banned, but they've decided that they're going to shun him. They're just not answering questions from him anymore. So he's not banned or barred, but he's being shunned.
So
right?
ridiculous.
It's basically a shunning. Yeah. So they're gonna shun him for now. And remember, back in when he was at Jackson State, they did actually bar a reporter from reporting. A reporter was barred because he reported on some story, some player issue that Deion did not agree with. So I don't know. You can't get a reputation for shunning and banning reporters. So I'm a Deion fan, as you guys know, but yeah, that's very snowflake.
No. To say you guys, why are you being negative? Why are you being negative? Like, well, why'd you tell me all those players sucked and they ruined your team last year and it wasn't your fault that your team was 4-12? It was those players you kicked off. That seemed negative, Dion. It seems negative to try and blame players for the shortcomings of your team. That feels negative. So should you be banned from being able to make roster decisions? No, then the media should be able to do their job.
Yeah, I like Dion, but
hey, for the record, if that was the case, Kirk Bowles wouldn't have been able to cover Texas for the last 20 years.
Amen to that, brother. Yes, yeah, no doubt. Yeah, you can't be that sensitive if you're Dion, man. You come on, you can't be sensitive like that. Especially you've been at places that you made them high profile. They weren't high profile before you got there, like Jackson State and Colorado. So you brought the media attention. Imagine when you go now, if you continue to progress in coaching, you're going to go to more high profile programs where we're going to have more media coverage, even more, because it's natural there. You can't be worried about that. You can't be overly sensitive to that kind of stuff. Let it roll. They those guys have a job. No, and Diaz worked in media too, which is weird because he knows that.
No, he does, but I know what he's trying to do. The problem is it's going to end up hurting his players at a certain point, because when Travis Hunter goes pro and when Shedeur goes pro and those guys go to that next level, people are going to go after them and they're going to have the attitude of, I don't have to answer negative questions. I'm like, yeah, you do. You don't get the choice. Exactly. We find you now. Also, you're not a Hall of Famer, so you don't get any clout.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah, I didn't think about that, but you're right. You don't get to control that if you're a player, and Dion as a coach, you don't get to control that either. So especially when you go to maybe that's why he doesn't like the pros, because in the pros you don't get to ban and shun reporters. No. You ain't got that kind of power. You do in college, I guess. I guess in college you have the kind of power what Dion does at the places that he's at. All right, let's get to some more NFL news, notes, and nuggets. On the other side, we'll talk a little Texans. Haven't gotten Texans discussion there. We'll talk some Texans, but also we'll get into a trend that I've noticed about the NFC Super Bowl representative. We'll get into that too. I don't know if it's a troubling trend, but it actually may foreshadow who and what teams are going to be representing the NFC in the Super Bowl this year. We'll dive into that. We got Raj Rant on the other side. I'll tell you an element of the Texas offense I think you're going to see more of this upcoming season. You may even see it in that Colorado State game. We'll discuss that too. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast when we return, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the Horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a Smooth Soul Monday edition of the Rodcast. That's when my co-host, the Idealionaire, Patrick Davis, he comes up with all the musically themed days of the week, but he comes up with a Smooth Soul Monday with the purpose of trying to transition you from your stress-free, fun-filled weekend to the stressful, hectic work week. He wants to make that a smooth transition, not a traumatic one, which it usually is for most of us with meetings and traffic and all the adulting that happens on a Monday. You might get a case of the Mondays. So in order to cure you of your case of the Mondays, he brings you a Smooth Soul Monday. Try to make it a smooth transition for you. So thank you very much to Patrick. We appreciate him with the musically themed days of the week. We also appreciate him coming up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day, which is already posted. You can go check it out at the Horn ATX. Patrick, give the folks the topic for the big fat poll of the day.
Big fat poll of the day today. How many points will Colorado State score against Texas? We gave you 4 options. We gave you 0, 1 to 10, 11 to 20, and 21 plus. Right now, 1 to 10 is leading the way at 51% of the vote, 40% of the vote going to 11 to 20. And then you get a couple votes for 0, and then a few more votes, about 6% for 21 plus. So,
all right.
Few people think that'll
it.
go 21 plus. Few people think that the late in the game, we got some text early. People thought it was going to be a little bit more because of the rotation and the substitutions and the depth issue. You know, once you start to get in that maybe Colorado State is really trying to get some points on the board, so they'll get them in late is where those. But right there in that, a few touchdowns, a few scores is what people think probably.
Yeah, I'm with you. I could see it. You know, I could see it anywhere from 1 to 20. I mean, like you said, that's the sweet spot for me. I went 11 to 20, so I think they'll give up, like a touchdown and maybe a field goal in the game, maybe a little bit over that touchdown, field goal, and maybe 2 field goals, something like that.
I can tell you can tell how long it's been since that I've thought about football in this form that I did put 1 as an option is in there.
You did. Yeah, but no,
in case they just kick an extra point, no touchdown. They get that 1 point score.
You watch a lot of soccer, man. We watch a lot of soccer.
This 1 point score. I'm like, you know what? I could have started at 2. We could have started at 2. It's the only possible scenario.
That is the only. I never thought about that, but you're right. That's all right. That's all right. We're still getting back into the groove of it, man. Still getting back into the groove of the football math. You know, football math is a little different too. No, but there you go. I'm with you. I think 11 to 20 is probably the sweet spot there, but we shall see how the how many guys Texas plays, what the lead is like, how comfortable they are with that lead. Really, it's about how early we see Arch. That'll tell you about how confident Sark is in the lead. If he's confident in that lead, then you get to see Arch out there, and he'll pull Quinn. Because right now, injury is top of mind for everybody. Yeah. Especially on the 4 days.
And I mean, too, you also don't want to show anything at all before Michigan and before you get into SEC play, you get anything. So I think, the earlier you pull anybody, the easier you can just go to really simple game plan and not really show anything.
I know that is usually and forever that has always been the logic that no, you want to be vanilla as possible, not show anything. And I always thought, man, you could, or you could show them way too much for them to prepare for. And then they basically have to waste practice time preparing for, make them prepare for ghosts. I always thought that, to me, that would be just as effective. Make them prepare for ghosts. Just go out there and throw, because it's almost irresponsible and malpractice as a coach. If you see something in game 1 and you play that team in game 2 to not prep your team for it. It's like, man, that's you as a coach. You weren't ready for that, and they showed it. As a coach, you would feel so bad. You feel so guilty. Yeah. As a coach, you're like, damn, man, they showed it to me, and I was prepared for it.
Man, they ran the wishbone. What are we gonna do?
Yeah, dude. I've always thought I'd sprinkle in 1 to 2 plays of like everything, and prepare for everything. You only got a certain amount of practice time. The rules dictate you only got a certain amount of practice time, certain amount of meeting time. All right. So as a coach, you got to be real careful about what you use periods of practice on. Like if you're going to spend 2 periods of practice on just trying to stop the Wildcat, you might need to. Or the two tailback set in the pony package, or the 6-0 line pack. You've shown this stuff in your last 3 years anyway. Why the hell are you not going to show it in the first game? They're watching the last 3 years of your film. They're not watching just the first game. They assume, like Patrick is, you're going to be vanilla in the first game anyway. So they're watching 2023. And they're watching 2022. So they've seen all this stuff. Why not show it all to them?
I like it.
Break out new stuff too. I'd break out a 10-person. I'll break it. I break out all my stuff and make you prepare for ghosts. And then in the short time you got, man, as a coach, you're gonna be drinking through a fire hose, or forcing all your players to drink through a fire hose, trying to learn all the concepts, all the checks, everything, because you showed them all that stuff. So either they're going to ignore it all and decide, nah, man, we're gonna guess at how you're gonna attack us, or they're going to address it all and they're going to prepare for ghosts and never actually narrow down their focus. And so when you hit them on game day, they still be ill prepared for it because they never spent enough time on it to prepare for it. I always say you can go either way. You can go either way. I'm not saying either way would work better than the other one, but it shouldn't always be, let's be straight vanilla. It's like, no, show them something.
I like that idea. Just try and mess with them a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. It's playing mind game. It's just mind game. You can show stuff you're never going to use in the whole, like, I will never use it ever again. We just want to show them, make them prepare for it. Make them prepare for it, and you never want to use it. And then they'll literally spend practice time, which is limited, on that concept. And which means that's the art of war. You already won. You're making them spend 3-4 practice periods on something you're never going to use against them. You already won. They're wasting time. The most valuable thing that you have as a football team right now. They're wasting it. I like it. That's why I would go back and forth on that either way if I was a coach. All right, there you go. So topic for the big fat poll of the day. How many points you think the Colorado State Rams will score against Texas? If you got a hot take, you can leave that too. So we appreciate my man Patrick hooking us up there. We also have a Rangers report coming up for you. We'll do that next segment. We'll do that. And if we have to, we'll just cram it at the end of next segment after Rod's rant of the day, which will be about a trend that I've noticed in the NFC. May foreshadow who's going to be the next Super Bowl representative coming out of the NFC. We'll dive into that. Also, I want to talk a little NFL here, and we'll get into the college football. We hadn't talked a ton about the games from this past weekend. Your little appetizer you had really for college football. So we'll dive into that a little bit too. I got a couple of nuggets I want to share about the upset Georgia Tech over Florida State. So we'll do that. But first, let's get updated. Let's get educated, and let's get informed on all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros got a 6-3 win on Sunday and split their series with the Orioles. Yusei Kikuchi pitched 5 2/3 innings, allowing 3 runs, but the Astros record with him starting is now 5-0. Alex Bregman and Yadier Diaz hit back-to-back home runs in the 7th to retake the lead, but in a bad note, Mauricio Dubon left the game after crashing into the wall on an amazing catch, picking up the 3rd out in the bottom of the 7th, and will be evaluated today. The Astros now head to Philadelphia to take on the Phillies, with Roniel Blanco getting the start. And the Rangers dropped their series to the Guardians after starting off the series with a 5-3 win on Friday. Corey Seager picked up 3 RBIs over the weekend, but the 20 runs allowed by the Rangers proved too much in the series. The Rangers will now take the day off before facing the White Sox tomorrow. In the NFL, the final week of preseason play wrapped up with the Texans getting a 17-15 win over the Rams, with Cam Akers averaging 7.6 yards per carry, trying to make the final cut. And Deuce Vaughn showed up for the Cowboys in a 26-19 loss to the Chargers with 9 rushes for 53 yards. Trey Lance was able to throw for 323 yards and rush for another 90, but also threw 5 interceptions in the game and fumbled the ball twice, with the Cowboys recovering both. NFL teams now have until at 3 p.m. tomorrow at 3 p.m. to make their final roster cuts to trim their rosters to 53 players. And college football kicked off this weekend with Georgia Tech upsetting Florida State in Dublin with a 24-21 win on a last-second field goal. SMU picked up a 29-24 win over Nevada after being down 11 going into the 4th quarter, and their debut as a Power 4 team. Week 1 of college football now starts on Thursday with 4 top 25 teams on the schedule, and that is your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. I appreciate those. Over the weekend, we did get a chance to get our first taste of college football, and you got your first big upset of the college football season 2. Georgia Tech pulling out the upset over Florida State. I will say this: college football underdogs were 4-0 against the spread in week 0. So Georgia Tech was a 10.5-point dog. New Mexico was a 13.5-point dog. Nevada was a 28-point dog to SMU. Delaware State was a 40.5-point underdog. So the underdogs actually had a really, really good start to the college football season. We'll see if that's something that is maintained. But I want to get to that Florida State loss because, man, Georgia Tech put it on Florida State. Now, Florida State was talking a lot of trash, too. I don't think people realize that's why there was a player, I think it was a freshman, actually, Charles Lester III. He was a Florida State player, and when Georgia Tech arrived there, I guess at their team hotel, he sat there and put on social media, like stared him down, like took a video of him staring down the team. I don't know why he was doing that, but he did. And then Florida State, they did, so they were over in Dublin, they did an Irish like dance, like an Irish jig thing that they posted on TikTok before the game. And then after the game, I don't know why the Georgia Tech players, I don't know, maybe they took offense to it. I have no idea. But they were seen doing the same thing. Like they did it after the game. So they were paying close attention to Florida State and some of the pre-game hype for Florida State. And Florida State did not live up to the hype at all. Georgia Tech won their first game against a top 10 team since 2015. By the way, the last time they did that was against Florida State. So that's pretty strange. And did in dramatic fashion, upsetting number 10 Florida State on a 44-yard basically game-winning field goal as time expired. And Georgia Tech had lost 15 straight to top 10 teams prior to that win over Florida State. And they did it by dominating on the ground, 190 yards rushing, great performance by the offensive line. How about this in terms of rushing stats? Just kind of mind-blowing, just showing you how dominant that Georgia Tech win was. 18 of Georgia Tech's 25 first down plays were design runs against Florida State. 18 of the 25 first down plays were design runs. They averaged 3.2 yards before contact against Florida State. You remember that 3 yards in a cloud of dust? They got there before anybody even touched them. They probably dragged them for more yards. Georgia Tech had 20 total design runs outside the tackles. They averaged 6.9 yards per rush when they ran outside the tackles. They averaged 7 yards per rush when they ran outside the tackles. Florida State had 8 missed tackles on those outside the tackle runs. And if you look at fewest completions in a win over Florida State in the playoff era, Georgia Tech, 11 completions, and they still were able to beat Florida State. Now, they beat Florida State with only 4 completions in 2015. Remember, that's back when they were still running like triple option stuff. But that's an embarrassing loss if you're Florida State. And aside from the 2 fourth down throws by DJU, if you take those out, he averaged 5.8 yards on 25 dropbacks. He just couldn't throw the football downfield. 6 of his 24 throws were within 1 yard of the line of scrimmage. He was 3 of 8 on throws of 10-plus yards downfield. And those 3 completions netted 2 total yards after the catch. So as soon as they caught it, boom, they were tackled. And they didn't throw the football downfield. They had no vertical passing game. And they really couldn't run the ball that well either during that game. You look at that yards before contact, Florida State averaged 1.1 yards before contact per attempt versus Georgia Tech. Last year, they averaged damn near 3 yards before contact per attempt. So they just got beat on lines of scrimmage.
Yeah.
Florida State got whipped on the lines of scrimmage.
Whipped on the lines of scrimmage. Yeah, they have not, for a team that was so mad about not making the playoff, they have not looked good since. Because they got smoked by Georgia.
Great point.
And then lose to Georgia Tech. And I don't think they ever want to go or be around Georgia anymore. I think they're good. Done with that.
Like the Peach State.
Not a fan of it.
Not a fan, huh?
No, but yeah, that is not a good start. But yeah, it is. The bigger issue was you got dominated on both lines of scrimmage. Yep. And if you want to be a competitive team, you cannot get dominated on both and then hope that you get bailed out. And I mean, they still have enough skill talent that they were able to be in the game, even though they were getting dominated on both.
Yeah.
And so they still have talent, but it puts you on that point where you go, we know in any big game against good teams in the Big Ten or the SEC, you're going to have issues because those leagues are built more on line play and they just don't have it. At least they didn't show it in Dublin.
I'm with you. And that's a loss now in conference play early on too for them.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Florida State. So Georgia Tech makes more. Remember, Georgia Tech, they're in Atlanta, and there isn't a metro area in the country producing NFL players at a higher rate right now than the Atlanta metro area. And that's kind of what if Georgia Tech taps into that, they don't need to get, all the big time recruits, because they won't. They get a little bit more of that talent in the Atlanta area. Watch out. They just got a 5-star interior O lineman, Josh Petty. He committed to Georgia Tech, 6'5", 265. He chose Georgia Tech over Florida State. Probably looks good now in reflection. And Ohio State and Tennessee. He's the second highest ranked recruit to ever commit to Georgia Tech. So Georgia Tech's making some moves. SMU, who also had a win in week 0, they're in a similar situation. Their DFW area is second in metro areas that produce the most NFL talent in the country, behind Atlanta right now. And SMU, who had a win over Nevada, probably a little closer than they wanted it to be, but they also can tap into that. And SMU, they got old money, all right, Pony Express excess money, and that's why they were able to forego their revenue shares from the conference, from the ACC, for the next 9 years. They can do that because they got boosters who are willing to float the program till then. They just want to play some big boy football. And if they can have some success and start tapping into that DFW talent in that area, that's why they wear the Dallas jerseys. I'm telling you, SMU and Georgia Tech are perfectly situated in fertile recruiting grounds, arguably the 2 most fertile recruiting grounds in the country right now.
Yeah, and I think
they ain't got to get the top talent, just a little bit of it.
Well, no, and I think there's a certain thing to be said about what SMU is going to be doing, and they've already started to do it a little bit more, and Georgia Tech may take a line from this as well, is you go after those transfers of top talent that went somewhere else, didn't get playing time, and now is homesick and wants to come back home, and now you go, well, I got your NIL money, and you're coming in, you can make an immediate impact on our team. You can get those transfers coming back home that maybe in high school, they got big eyes, and they see and they go, man, I'm going to Florida,
State,
and I'm in Ohio
Florida,
State. And then you realize you're third on the depth chart, and you don't want to be there, and you don't want to earn your time and play there, and you get homesick because this is the first time you've been away from home, and you go, well, why don't you come on back to Dallas?
Yeah, we'll pay you a little bit too. We'll make sure you.
Hey, you gonna be riding around. You ain't gonna be living with your parents.
But you can visit them. You can visit them all the time. No, and I would love. I think you hit the nail on the head there, Patrick. I would love to see the numbers on how many transfers are basically it's a home going for them, and they end up coming back close to home. And I say it happens a ton. Well, either back to the home state or near the home city.
We've seen that with Texas of guys, especially in basketball, where you've got guys that transfer back to Texas, and it's not necessarily they're from Austin, but they're from the Texas area.
Exactly.
And they're like, well, now I can go play for this good program, but I don't have to be out of state, and I don't have to deal with, like I can see my family and friends can drive in to see me, and I'm not so far away that it's a plane trip or it's a drive.
I agree with that.
Texas, I know in basketball, that's several players have been transfers back just because they want to be in the Texas area.
AD Mitchell, I mean,
AD Mitchell.
He had a daughter, and he was like, hey, I want to be closer to my daughter and my family, and he was from Texas. I agree with that, actually. I think you're right. I think I would love to see the actual breakdown of the numbers. I bet it's a really high percentage of players when they transfer that decide, I'm going back close to home, regionally, statewide, whatever it may be. All right, good stuff there. Okay, real quick, I got a couple of things I want to bring up about the Texans, just real quick while we got some time. Okay, so I saw Dameon Pierce actually made, I don't know if he made the roster. The roster cuts haven't been done yet, but he didn't play in the preseason game yesterday.
Yeah.
And the belief is that either you don't play because you either make the team, or he's not playing because they're protecting Dameon Pierce so that he can be more of a tradable asset. And I'm not sure which one it is for Dameon Pierce, because they like Cam Akers. And the belief is that maybe, Dameon Pierce still is not really compatible with what they want to do in the run game. So that's a nugget to keep in mind, because he's on the team, and the concerns have either been overblown, and maybe we just been talking about it too much, and it's much ado about nothing, or the team they didn't want to risk him getting hurt if he's going to be a tradable asset early on in the season or before the season. Not really sure which one it is.
I mean, because they drafted a running back.
Yes.
as well, but he has not looked great in the preseason either. So you don't know if he's going to end up making this final roster. Cam Akers has looked better. We know Cam Akers has always been able to run the ball. The problem has been ball security for a lot of his career, that he's had some fumbles, and that's why he would get moved down the depth chart. So, I mean, I don't know if he's figured all of that out yet, but not seeing Dameon Pierce is an interesting development. You would have expected that they would have tried to get him in. And maybe it's that they're just like, well, we don't want to play him at the beginning because then it's just going to kill him even more. And we don't want to play him at the end because then it shows that he's like 600 depth chart.
We don't like him. Yeah, good point. I'm not sure.
So I don't know what it is, but I mean, I could see him getting traded. His value can't be very high right now.
No, 6th to 7th round.
But
that's pretty much it. Yeah.
But I could see them moving off and just saying it's time to move on from the Dameon Pierce. It's just not working in the system. But you got to have some depth, because as much as Joe Mixon, we hope he's really good, running back injuries happen on pretty much every team every season. So you need to have some other players there. So you need to make sure you have 3 deep that you can play. And so if you trade Dameon Pierce, are you comfortable with Cam Akers being your backup? And then what's his name? JJ.
Yeah. I forget his name right now, but something.
JJ Taylor, right? Or is it Jawar Jordan is the one that they had?
Yeah, it is.
Jawar Jordan is the one they drafted. Yes. JJ Taylor is the one who's been playing better in the preseason.
Okay. Yes, I don't know. I thought that was interesting because I expected to see. I was going to let me see how bad Dameon Pierce has looked in the last preseason game, and then he didn't play. So not really sure what that means for the Texans. Also, and I saw this article for Bucky Brooks around the NFL, and I'll just read you the title of the article. It says Sauce Gardner might hold the title of NFL cornerback 1 right now, but Bucky Brooks says Derek Stingley is coming for the throne in 2024. I'm not the only one who's championing my man Derek Stingley to be an All-Pro this year. Bucky Brooks believes it's going to be the case too. I think he's got a chance to be a top 3 to 5 cornerback in the league next season.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, he was that good at the end of the season. Most people just didn't pay attention to. He was really good, man.
And that's
in the playoffs. They put him on to shadow Amari Cooper and Zay Flowers.
No, and you're hoping that they, the elevated pass rush that you spend a lot of time in the offseason and money in the offseason to upgrade, that becomes something that helps him out even more, because it helps your secondary. And if you can make a guy throw off-platform throws to your way, that's how you get interceptions.
Yeah,
is the ball not coming out right. And if Stingley can continue to shut his guys down and then make those big plays when the defensive line gets pressure, then they're set up for him to be an All-Pro. He just needs to go do it.
Yep. No, I agree with that. Also, something to bring up. I'm not sure how confident the Texans are in their linebackers. I know they love Azeez Al-Shaair. I know they like Christian Harris. And is it Henry Teoto? I believe also is one of the other projected starting linebackers for them. Just throwing it out there. I know Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans are always talking about improving the squad. They always look to make upgrades. When the Matthew Judon trade basically story came up, the Texans, at least we know now in retrospect, they were one of the teams that inquired about Judon before the Falcons traded for him. And there's another player, a defensive player, Ernest Jones IV, who was in a contract negotiation with the Rams, who I think that contract negotiation turned into a dispute because they have not had any progress. The Rams have openly stated they're open to a trade for him. He's a free agent in 2025, but he was their defensive play caller last year. Like, he was the one that wore the green dot, I should say. So he's the one that was considered the kind of the quarterback of that defense. 145 tackles, 4.5 sacks last year. Just throwing it out there. I wonder if the Texans could look at him potentially as an upgrade at linebacker if they're not sure. I know they like Christian Harris. I know they, of course, like Al-Shaair Azeez, but I'm not sure about the Henry Teoto. So I wonder if maybe they can try to figure out a way, try to upgrade at the linebacker position.
I mean, I think that's one that it depends on what you have to give up and what you got to pay, because Ernest Jones is not going to want to come to be a mercenary there either. I think he'd stay with the Rams if he was fine not getting the contract.
Very true.
So you have to figure out what the contract is, but I can almost guarantee it was mentioned this week at joint practices.
Yeah, great point. I didn't have that went right over my head that they actually had practice together. So if the Texans were interested, they got an up close and personal look of him. I will say that, remember, it was reported, and man, we have to find the sound, that Matthew Judon, that he was willing to go to another team and not necessarily sign a new deal right away because he wanted to play for a contender.
Yeah, I
And
could
that
see
came out
that
a little bit later on.
But Ernest Jones
So
is playing on the Rams, so he's not necessarily on a.
no, I agree. But I was talking about just the Judon thing individually. Like, I didn't realize that. I thought he was all about getting a new contract.
Yeah.
And it was reported that no, he wants to play for a contender that was a higher priority potentially to him, or just as high as the money.
And I'll mention too, in the Ernest Jones, I believe he's come out already and said that he did not ask for a trade. So he has not said I'm requesting a trade and looking. The Rams are just basically saying we're not paying you what you want.
Yes,
so if you want to, we'd rather
yeah.
get something back for you because you're a star in the making at 24 years old, and we would like to get something back if you're gonna leave in free agency.
Yep, that's exactly what's going on. I can see him now. One he's like, I live in LA and I play for the Rams. Like, it looks like we're going to be playing for Super Bowls or at least in contention for a long time. But yeah, I mean, linebacker is not a premium position, so you don't spend a lot of money at it. I mean, even when you got really good ones like him, as well as positions where you can find a good linebacker in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds of the NFL draft. Go look at the best linebackers in the NFL. Most of them mid-round picks.
Yeah, Ernest Jones, 3rd round pick.
Exactly. It's like, that's the reality of that position, man. It's just one of those. All right. Good stuff there. We come back. I want to get into Rod's rant. It is a trend that I've noticed in the NFC, and I think it may foreshadow who's going to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl this year. We'll dive into that. Also, we got a Rangers report on the other side, so we'll squeeze in your Rangers report to all of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis. Coming back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some NFL discussion. I am doing some research, obviously getting ready for the NFL season, and started to notice this. I noticed this stat, and then did some deeper dive research on it, and went down a little bit of a rabbit hole, and then found this troubling trend, or more compelling one, about the NFC representatives in the Super Bowl. Shout out to 365 Scores is where I got it. It says the NFC. You look at the NFC. It started out with looking at how many teams have been able to make it to consecutive Super Bowls since 1998 on the NFC side. Only the Seattle Seahawks, 2013-14 Seahawks, are the only team since 1998 to go to consecutive Super Bowls for the NFC. And you guys know I've talked about ad nauseum the 5-year rule. If you're a coach and your quarterback have been together for at least 5 years and they haven't won a Super Bowl, chances are they won't, because no coach quarterback duo pairing has won their first Super Bowl outside of that 5-year window. So start looking at the quarterbacks and the coaches in these situations. We talked about how no team in the NFC has been able to go to back-to-back Super Bowls other than the 2013-2014 Seahawks since 1998. And then I found, you look at this one, the last 8 Super Bowl teams from the NFC, the representatives, all went into that season where they made their Super Bowl run with a quarterback who had no more than 16 starts with that team's current head coach. The 2016 Falcons, Dan Quinn and Matt Ryan, second year, 16 starts, boom. They go to a Super Bowl. Probably should have won one. 2017 Eagles, Doug Peterson, Nick Foles. All right, Nick Foles, that was his first year together there with Doug Peterson. 0 prior starts. 2018 Rams, Sean McVay and Jared Goff. Second year together, 16 prior starts. 2019 49ers, my man Shano and Jimmy Garoppolo, although third year together because of all of the injuries for Jimmy Garoppolo, only 8 prior starts together. In 2020, Bruce Arians and Tom Brady, we know, first year for Tom Brady and Bruce Arians, won it in his first year. Sean McVay and Matt Stafford, same thing, back-to-back years. In 2022, Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts got to the Super Bowl in the second year together, 16 prior starts. And in 2023, you got Kyle Shanahan. Morris Shanahan gets there again, this time with Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, as his starting quarterback. Second year together, only had 8 prior starts prior to that year, making the Super Bowl run. So kind of based on that trend, I wonder if you're going to see a new team, some new blood in the NFC potentially rise up. Now, I said it kind of would fit Jordan Love, but Jordan Love is right outside of it. They would be perfect to pick as the NFC representative in the Super Bowl based on that statistical trend I just pointed out to you. But he's got 18 starts right now under Matt LaFleur. Got 18 starts, regular season actually, and then you got one playoff. So you got a couple. So he's got too many starts. He doesn't meet the criteria. You're looking for somebody with fewer than 16 starts, with their current head coach, who has the potential to make a run in the NFC. And that could be a few teams, honestly. That could be a couple of teams you could see do that. But that is, I didn't realize that the NFC is funky in so many ways. I've talked about the NFC East and how funky it is. The NFC East has so much, incestuous ties going on, with Dan Quinn from the Cowboys DC to being the head coach of Washington, Kellen Moore from being the Cowboys OC to being now the OC of the Philadelphia Eagles, and Saquon Barkley going from the Giants to the Eagles. That's an in-division trade. It's just, there's a lot of connective tissue with that division, and nobody's won that division consecutively in 20 years since the Eagles did it in the early 2000s. So if anything, the quarterbacks in the NFC, they're inconsistent. Maybe Matt Stafford's the most consistent of those quarterbacks in the NFC, but their careers have had very kind of non-traditional arcs to them. Like, look at Jared Goff. Jared Goff is of course, he's the franchise quarterback of the Lions, but Jared Goff at one point was considered a bust. Jared Goff at one point was considered a throwaway quarterback or throw-in quarterback with a trade, and then at one point was considered a bridge quarterback, and now is a franchise quarterback. And you can make the argument one of the best in the NFC. And Dak had his best season ever, or as a quarterback, had his best season ever. It was a MVP candidate. Was statistically, you look at him, second team All Pro, led the NFL in touchdown passes. But people don't believe in Dak, right? Even Dak's own fans of the Cowboys don't have a lot of trust in Dak. Hell, his own organization won't even give Dak the money that he's earned and deserves as their franchise quarterback. Then you got Eagles. We thought Jalen Hurts was ascending as an elite quarterback, and last year has a regression to being kind of a turnover machine. And then what's going to happen with the play caller? He has a new play caller every year. Will his coach be fired? Look, some people think Nick Sirianni's on the hot seat. We have no idea what's going to happen with Jalen Hurts, who's now trying to become a game executive rather than being a game manager for the Philadelphia Eagles. And then there's also the rookies who could really upset the apple cart. I don't know if that, I don't want to say they're going to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, but they could disrupt the conference, disrupt their divisions, and play spoiler. Guys like Jaden Daniels with Washington, Caleb Williams with the Bears. They could play spoiler, really mess up a division with, Detroit and Green Bay pretty much at the top of that thing. That could end up being something that's really surprising. So it's just a lot of Kirk Cousins. He's got more weapons than he's had, arguably, since he's been a starting quarterback now. More versatile weapons with Atlanta. Bijan, Drake London. You got Kyle Pitts, Freaky Pitts thrown in there too. The O-line is really good for Atlanta. They've really improved and upgraded the defense after all the trades they made, including Judon. Got maybe the best safety duo in the NFL. I think they're going to win that division, but hell, they could make some noise in the conference if they're really ahead of schedule. And then you got, teams at the Rams. I mean, we don't talk about the Rams enough, but they do have Matt Stafford, who's a Super Bowl winning quarterback, who's probably arguably the most consistent quarterback in the NFC. And the Rams have reinvented their model to win post Aaron Donald. And they were a playoff team last year. No reason to think they won't improve and continue this year. And we know Sean McVay, top 5 coach in the league. Top 5 coach in the league, and you got one of the better top 5 quarterback in the NFC. They could make a move. Seattle with Ryan Grubb as their new OC. I like Ryan Grubb as a new OC. And Mike McDonald, his defense, we already know he's one of the brightest young defensive minds in the NFL. And Patrick pointed out yesterday, their wide receiving core is legit. That is a nasty wide receiving core, man, with DK Metcalf. And you go look at it now, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Tyler Lockett. That's one of the best wide receiving cores in the league. And they're going to have now a new dynamic offensive play call who's very progressive, very cutting edge. Longhorn fans saw it up close and personal the last 2 years in the bowl game against Washington. And I think they could end up making some noise. They're in a hell of a division, but they could make some noise. So I don't know who fits necessarily that stat I gave you about fewer than 16 starts with the head coach before they have that Super Bowl run or that season where they make that Super Bowl run. But I just think you got a lot of wild cards at the quarterback position potentially in the NFC. All right, that's some NFL news, notes, and nuggets. Let's get into the Rangers report while we got some time here.
The Rangers report is brought to you by Texas Truck and Trailer.
All right, the Rangers with a loss to the Guardians over the weekend. Game 3 to the Guardians, they lost 4-2, unfortunately, for the Rangers, Cleveland. And how about this? Against the Guardians, and this is just, I guess, they've been kind of a bugaboo, if you will, for the Rangers. The Rangers are now 2-7 in their last 9 games against the Guardians. 14-30. In 43 games against them since the start of 2017. Whatever it is, the Guardians, whatever mojo they got, it works really well against the Rangers. That's it's their lowest win percentage, by the way, against any AL club over that time span. Texas has also lost 10 of its last 13 games at Progressive Field. And its last series win in Cleveland came May 30th through June 1st of 2016. So they got the Rangers numbers, basically what it comes down to. So don't be too upset about it. Rangers, it seems like now they're just trying to play spoiler. And maybe I'm gonna say they've given up on the season, but I think spoiler is kind of where they kind of relegated themselves right now. And if you go look at it, that last game, a lot of sloppy play. You had 2 errors by the pitchers. Without those 2 errors, the Rangers probably would have been in position to tie that game. That last game they lost versus the Guardians. So the sloppy play is not something you want to see at the end of the season. Like, see guys get pretty much buttoned up. They're still waiting on positive reports from the injury report about Jacob deGrom. He had a successful rehab outing at Double-A Frisco. Max Scherzer was scratched from his rehab outing. And so the Rangers are still kind of waiting on some good news there as well. So there you go. Oh, how about this? Nathan Eovaldi, you want some positive news? Nathan Eovaldi in Texas won that game 5-3. The first game of this series, 5-3 over Cleveland. And then after that, Cleveland just kind of much bulldozed them. Against the Guardians, Texas was able to score more than their season average with 5 runs apiece in each of the first 2 games, which was good. Something they hadn't done consecutively for 2 weeks and only 6 times overall in the month of August. Unfortunately for them, only one of those outputs was worthy of a win, and that was the one where Nathan Eovaldi made the start. How about this one? And I said against a team that usually has the Rangers number. And Nathan Eovaldi threw a season high 106 pitches in 6 innings against the Guardians and capped it with a 1-2-3-6. It's the first time this season that he's thrown 100 plus pitches in consecutive starts. So that's really good. He was able to complete 6 innings while allowing 3 runs, the minimum requirement for a quality start for Nathan Eovaldi. So that's some good news for the Rangers. All right, that's our Rangers report brought to you by Texas Truck and Trailer.
The Rangers Report is brought to you by Texas Truck and Trailer, your premier truck accessory dealer.
All right, we'll go to the break. We'll come back. We'll play Who Said That. That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, then based on the context clues or based on the familiarity of the voice. Hopefully I can, and you can as well, identify and recall who said that. We'll play that on the other side when we come back. This is the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis. Coming back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a Smooth Soul Monday. That's when my man Patrick plays jams that are intended to soothe your soul, because a lot of you may be a bit tormented by a case of the Mondays, going from a stress-free, fun-filled weekend to a very stressful, hectic work week. And in order to avoid some of the trauma associated with that, my man Patrick wants to ease you into the work week with a smooth transition via a Smooth Soul Monday. So we appreciate him and all of his efforts. We also appreciate him coming up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day, which is already posted at the Horn ATX on X. And how many points will Colorado State score against Texas? That's all Patrick wants to know. And you got 4 choices. 0 points. Will they get the goose egg and shut them out? Will they score 10 points or fewer? Will they score between 11 and 20 points? Or will they score 21 points or more? And most of you, all 49%, thinks they'll score 10 points or fewer, between 2 and 10 points, somewhere around there. I have between 11 and 20 points. I think Colorado State's passing attack may end up making a play here or there that will surprise Texas. And you'll have a lot of backups playing. You'll have some guys in there who you're just trying to manufacture depth with, and they may end up giving up some plays to the starters for Colorado State that still may be in the game. All right, so there you go. That's the topic for the big fat poll of the day. Go check it out. Also, something before we get to the Who Said That segment, I do want to acknowledge this, and shout out to my man CB, because CB sent it to me first, and I found a story, not a story, but actually a tweet from Channel 2 in H-Town. My man CB is at Chris GB002000. I'm sure he found some more information about it. But apparently, and this is very disturbing, Greg Swindell's daughter is missing. 29-year-old Brenna Swindell has been missing since August 22nd. Her white Kia Carnival was last spotted in Colorado. So it's obviously very disturbing, and I'm sure his family right now is in crisis mode trying to figure out what's going on. But I didn't know anything about that. So thanks, CB, for bringing it to my attention, and I'm sure Longhorn fans out there will try to help out any way they can. But that is really sad that they can't find his daughter right now. So hoping that that's just, she's off somewhere and hasn't communicated. We don't really know what's up with that. That is a story that is developing, and one that is, like I said, right now, kind of sad and scary, especially for that family. So thoughts and prayers with the family. Hopefully it all works out and it's not some worst case scenario there. All right, let's get to Who Said That. That's when we play pieces of audio, sometimes from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, hopefully you can identify and recall who said that.
I made it huge, the communication on the Browns offense, you could tell, was slower. And, even when us, if we're away and that happens, it kind of slows things down. And you have to be really, really on your A game to be able to be efficient on offense with a loud stadium. So it's just, I think we can look to be better about being a little quieter when the offense is on the field, especially like when we're going fast and 2 minutes and stuff like that. Just so the linemen and stuff can hear me. But I do love just the great crowd that we're going to get this year. I just can't wait. Quieter.
Yeah, that's CJ Stroud. Basically, there's a campaign now in Houston because the Texans weren't used to being a good team. And when your team is good, your crowd noise is supposed to, be advantageous to help your team at home. So you only weaponize the crowd noise when the opposing team's on offense. You don't just scream the whole game. Yeah. But Texas fans haven't been good in a long time, so they just scream the whole game, like, yeah, woo, yeah, scream for everything. And that's why you remember Peyton Manning used to quiet the crowd. Yeah. He would literally go up there and quiet the crowd. And they would listen to him like, no, be quiet, guys, because they need us to be quiet so they can execute. And we get loud when the opposing offense is out there, and we make their life hell. And that's what you're supposed to do as a crowd. And if you act like the 12th man, like they actually organize that kind of stuff, like for the Aggies, like that's what you do. You organize that and kind of weaponize your fan base. And what CJ is saying very nicely is that they just make noise all the damn time. They just always constantly screaming. So don't be surprised if he gives a little quiet the crowd.
Yeah, he's just trying to say it's preseason for you guys too. Maybe you learn a little bit better by the time we get in and get to some important games. We want you there, but we save your voice for the defense.
Yes, and he's from Ohio State, where I'm sure they're all trained about. No, you don't make noise the whole time. You make noise to
you cheer after a big play, and then you quiet back down.
Yes, yeah. So that's what we got to learn as Texas fans, because they're not used to being good. So it's just like, yeah, we're good. And it's like, yeah, but you wait till you're screaming. It can actually help the team with that. All right, there you go. That's who said that. Thank you, Patrick, for all you do. Great job. Really excited. It's game week, folks. So we'll be breaking down Texas, Colorado State tomorrow. Remember, the revolution will not be televised. We talk about it right here on the Rodcast. We love you guys. We mean that. Take care of yourselves, but more importantly, take care of each other. Until next time, hook 'em and peace.